From Manila to Bicol.
Yes, Daphne. Una sa lahat, nakakatuwang marinig yung mga sinabi ng ating Pangulo sa kanyang SONA ukol dito sa napakadaming nating mga proyekto sa departamento. Sabi nga, ito ay isang moral booster para doon sa ating mga kasamahan na nasa frontline na patiniguraduhin na matapos ang lahat ng mga proyektong ito on time. Dito sa dalawang proyektong nabanggit, una sa lahat itong Subic-Clark-Manila-Batangas Railway, kung maalala iteration nitong proyektong ito, ang ating Subic-Clark Railway Project, na sa kasamaang palad ay hindi natin nakuha ang financing na ating dating inaasahan. At kung kaya't nung ating pinag-aralan ulit ito, ay inisip na gawing Subic, Clark, Manila, Batangas, at nang sa ganon ang ating tinatayong logistics corridor ay hindi lang maidugtong ang ating pantalan sa Subic at ang ating airport sa Clark, at nang sa ganon ay umabot tayo pati sa Port of Manila at sa Port of Batangas. Itong proyektong ito, ang Subic-Clark-Manila-Batangas Rail, ay ang flagship project ng tinatawag na Partnership for Global Infrastructure. At ito ay inanunsyo noong earlier this year sa Trilateral Summit ni Pangulong Marcos at ng ating kasama at ng American President Joe Biden at ng Japanese Prime Minister sa Washington DC, at kasalukuyan nating inaayos ang feasibility study para dito sa Subic-Clark, Manila, Batangas kasama ang Asian Development Bank, ang Sweden at ang USTDA. So yan ang ating tinitingnan dito sa napakalaking bagong proyektong ito. Doon naman sa ating proyekto patungong Bicol ay malugod naming pinapaalam na operational na ang ating Bicol Commuter. So tayo ay nagpadala ng ilan sa ating mga tren ng PNR upang magbigay ng serbisyo sa Naga-Legazpi Commuter. Ngunit meron din tayong isa pang proyekto, yung ating South Long Haul Project, na magkokonekta ng Kamaynilaan sa Bicol at hanggang Sorsogon at maging hanggang sa Batangas. At ito ay kasalukuyang ating ina-update ang feasibility study, at pag natapos yan, tayo ay ayusin natin yung financing para naman sa proyektong yan. So yan yung estado nitong dalawang long-haul railways na ating nabanggit, ang Subic-Clark Manila Batangas at ang South Long-Haul Rail Project.
Very interesting and exciting. This, let's not forget what the President called it, a railway renaissance. I think all Filipinos should celebrate that. Now, the President also added, unang-una na rito ay ang paliparan ng Maynila. Sa pangasiwa ng pribadong sektor, inaasahang gaganda ang hitsura at serbisyo nito sa mga susunod na taon. Soon it will be capable of accommodating 48 flights per hour, servicing our ever-increasing local and international flight routes, and catering to more than 62 million passengers per year. So when can passengers see or experience significant improvements in NAIA terminals in light of the public-private partnerships or PPP project? And this is for DOTR again.
Yes, Daphne, una sa lahat kung ating maalala, the last time that we did any major capacity expansion for NAIA was in 2008. Nung binuksan natin ang Terminal 3. So naiakyat niyan ang ating kapasidad to 35 million passengers per annum. However, as early as 2016, nakita natin na nalagpasan na yung kapasidad na yan. 36.6 million passengers per annum tayo nung 2016. At nung bago mag-pandemic, umabot na tayo ng 48 million passengers per annum. And this year, we are on track to go 49, even 50 million passengers per annum. So ang nakikita natin is a 35 million passenger per annum capacity airport has been servicing 48-50 million passengers per annum. At yan ang dahilan kung bakit itong proyekto natin na public-private partnership para sa NAIA ay talagang binigyan ng prioridad ng ating kagawaran. At kung kaya't noong March 2024, ating napirmahan ng concession agreement sa ating concessionaire, ang New NAIA International Airport, ang New NAIA Airport Corporation or NNIC, at tayo ay mag-handover ng airport sa September 14. So, isa't kalahating buwan na lang at ating maiya-handover na ang ating NAIA. Ngayon, anong inaasahan natin? Una sa lahat, itataas natin ang kapasidad ng airport mula 35 hanggang 62 million passengers per annum, at ang kapasidad ng ating runway na magserbisyo ng aircrafts from 40 to 48 movements per hour. Ngayon, paano yan gagawin? In the first 6 years of the concession, we are expecting our concessionaire to put in an estimated 88 billion pesos just in the first 6 years in investments into NAIA. Now, to give context, from 2010 to 2023, ang average capital outlay natin in NAIA has been 2 billion pesos per year. So from 2 billion, we're bringing that up to a total of 88 billion just for the first 6 years. And yan yung inaasahan natin na gagawa nitong additional na kapasidad na mararamdaman ng ating mga pasahero in terms of bigger facilities, more efficient facilities, IT-enabled facilities. Now, aside from that, convenience to passengers, on top of that, meron pa tayong dagdag na revenues na nakuha mula dito sa proyektong ito, a total of 900 billion ang concession payments na matatanggap natin mula sa ating concessionaire. Nandyan yung upfront nilang 30 billion na concession payment, 2 billion per year na annuity payment, and 82% of revenues, excluding passenger service charges, over the 15 plus 10-year concession. So, 1 plus 1 plus 1, nakita natin na ma-expand natin yung capacity, mapaganda natin yung serbisyo, may pasok natin yung karagdagang investment na kinakailangan ng ating pangunahing gateway airport sa Kamaynilaan. Plus, nandyan pa yung meron tayong nakuhang dagdag na kontribusyon sa ating kaban, at syempre yung service levels at yung mga dagdag na trabaho makikita natin. Yan ang mga outcomes na ating nakita na at inaasahan pang makita dito sa ating NAIA PPP project.
Thank you, Undersecretary Batan. Of course, we look forward to better service and also convenience for all. Very exciting. Let's move on to energy. The President also stated that the energization of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection is a defining moment not only for the power sector, but for the entire country. Finally, we have connected the power grids of all 3 major island groups. The unified Philippine grid is a fulfillment of the dream whose seeds were planted in the early 1980s through a vision bolstered by R&D, which we accomplished by applying typical Filipino persistence and dedication. Wow, Secretary Latilla. Now that we have a unified grid, are there plans to develop redundancies in our grid, or at least have some contingencies so that we would be prepared should there be problems in the grid?
Thank you, Daphne. Well, that's exactly the vision of the President, and which he has again reiterated in the State of the Nation address. So for the first time, we have been able to connect the Visayas and Mindanao, and therefore also with Luzon, and we have one grid. What does this mean for the country? Right now, we have excess capacity or excess power being produced in Mindanao up to 800 megawatts a year. So the excess capacity can now be transported through the submarine cable to the Visayas to the Visayan Islands where they are going to be used. So since 2016, this excess power has in effect been stranded. And that's why the President, when he came into office, concentrated on 3 major projects that would free up stranded power. Nandyan na yung generation power plants, pwede na silang mag-supply ng elektrisidad, ngunit dahil walang transmission connections, hindi sila pwedeng magbato ng elektrisidad where they were needed. So one is the Mindanao-Visayas Interconnection Project, 450 megawatts from Mindanao can go to the Visayas. And then in the Visayas, Cebu, Negros, and Panay are now interconnected. And again, the excess power from Mindanao can now go all the way to Panay, which is at the end of the line. Then in Luzon, would you believe at the start when the President's term began, we had 600 megawatts of power in Bataan which could not be fully utilized in the metropolitan area because there was not enough transmission lines. So all these 3 major projects have been completed, and what the President was referring to as Filipino persistence and the formula, what it means really is tutok and pukpok. So in the case of the Department of Energy, we do the tutok, but for the pukpok, we had to depend on the President. And it's the President's office that had to push for this because they involve a lot of elements to be put together. The private sector, there were cases pending in court, there were delays in the construction. So all of these had to come together. Now, we still have much more to do. So one of the things that you mentioned was the redundancy. So, for example, the North Luzon Loop. This is to connect Ilocos with Cagayan. Right now, in those 2 areas, it's a one-way street, and that's why the power is unstable. We've got to build the loop in the transmission so that in case something happens in the Ilocos side, we can use the Cagayan side, and so on. Same with, as we said, Panay, same with Zamboanga Peninsula. So there are many, and Mindoro, for example, that needs to be interconnected with Luzon. So all of these things we're going to work on, and we were able in the last 2 years to bring the NGCP's construction from an average or from 2009 when NGCP took over up to the end of 2022. The transmission lines, the length of the lines increased only by 8%. Now, in the last 2 years, by May of 2024, we have been able to increase that to 10.5%. And that is not enough because in order for new plants to be constructed, there has to be a system impact study that NGCP has to do. And the good news is that when the President started his term, the length of waiting was 2 years for a system impact study. Now it is down to 3 to 6 months, and with NGCP's cooperation, we want to bring it down further so that the needed capacity for generation can be put up in as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, persistence and dedication,
Right.
tutok at pukpok. A lot can be done. Thank you. We're still on energy here. Ang sinabing ito ng Pangulo ay may kinalaman pa rin sa Department of Energy. And he said, binabalikan at binubusisi natin muli ang EPIRA upang malaman kung natutulungan pa ba nitong mabuti ang ating kasalukuyang sitwasyon or napapanahon na ba na ito ay amyendahan. Hinihiling ko sa Kongreso na pagtulungan na natin ito, alang-alang sa kapakanan ng mga Pilipino. Sa taas ng presyo ng kuryente sa bansa, nahihirapan hindi lamang ang mga negosyante, kundi lalo na ang taong bayan. Secretary Lutilia, other than amendments to the EPIRA law, are there other policy reforms that are necessary to help lower the price of electricity?
Well, thank you again, Daphne. First, the President emphasized the need to introduce some reforms or changes. So one of them actually is extending the life of the corporate life of the power sector and assets liabilities management. At the time that the EPIRA was enacted in 2001, we thought that it would take only 25 years to finish all of the
Mga minamahal kong kababayan, lagi po nating labanan ang mali at ang masama. Lagi po nating ipaglaban ang tama at ang mabuti. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipino. Mabuhay po kayo at mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Nag-umpisa ako sa NMPC. Nagkaroon ng studio ang NMPC. Ito ay may dalawang camera na black and white. So yan ang kami nagdo-double up as radio technician. Nagkaroon kami ng cameras. Ngayon po ito colored cameras na Hindi ko makakalimutan na experience, I think, yung coverage namin sa China, which is first time na nag-cover kami ng overseas.
and also for other parts of the country through the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection. And it also means that the additional capacity, the growth of the need for power and the growth of demand in Mindanao is also growing by at least 6% annually. And it is going to continue to grow as the peace dividend that the President has pointed out in the case of BARM. The Bangsamoro Autonomous Regional, the region is one of the fastest growing regions in Mindanao right now. And that means more power. And through this, by extending the life of PISAM, then we will be able to have a counterparty for the Agus plants. Then we have other assets of PISAM, for example, like the location of the North Mindanao coal plant, which is going to be closed down, can be made available for newer and cleaner technologies to be put up in the same area. So there are lots of things that we still have to do with that. The other reform, and I hope Chairman Di Malanta will be able to expand more on this, is the strengthening of the Energy Regulatory Commission. Because the Energy Regulatory Commission was created under EPIRA in 2001. But we see that there is now greater need for faster consideration and approval by the ERC of the so many applications we have for renewable energy, even for conventional energy, and they will have to prepare for other eventual new technologies. So these are the things that Congress has supported for consideration in the legislative agenda. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Secretary Latilia. Let's move on to our next statement. For CCEO Di Malanta, binanggit ng Pangulo sa kanyang SONA na ilan sa mga hakbang na pinatupad ng pamahalaan ay, una, ang mas maayos at patas na lifeline rate program para sa mga mahihirap, lalo na sa mga benepisyaryo ng 4Ps. Pangalawa, ang naging pansamantalang pagsuspende ng fit-all tariff sa ating electric bill. Pangatlo, ang anti-bill shock program. Pang-apat, ang naging pagsuspinde sa wholesale electricity spot market noong panahon ng red alert sa Luzon at Visayas grids. At panglima, mga refund at pagpapatanggal ng mga sobrang singil sa consumer tulad ng franchise fee. CCEO Di Malanta, other than those mentioned by the President, are there other efforts on that part of the ERC that would help lower electricity cost in the country?
Thank you, Daphne, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity for ERC to update you and support also the call of the President for promoting energy affordability. Yung mga nabanggit po ni Pangulo, patuloy naman po natin yun minamatyagan. Katulad nung sa suspension ng fit-all rate sa ating mga bills. Patuloy po na binabantayan natin, pag healthy yung fit-all fund, ito po yung binabayad natin for renewable energy generation na sinusupply sa ating lahat. Pag po healthy yung fund, titingnan natin kung may pagkakataon ulit na isuspinde, kahit po ilang sentimo lang ito, ngayon ay 4 centavos ito per kilowatt hour, kabawasan din po ito sa binabayad natin sa kuryente. Pero bukod po dito, binabantayan din natin yung nabanggit din kanina ni Secretary Lotilia, yung impact ng transmission project delays. Kasi po may impact po ito sa taas din ng kuryente. So nasimula na rin naman po ang komisyon sa pagbabantay nito para po tataasan natin yung level of accountability for our regulated entities. For the refunds, katulad po na nabanggit ng Pangulo, meron pa po tayong inaabangan na 20 billion pesos na refund for some of our electric cooperatives na hindi pa nila nakukumpleto. So meron po tayong mga consumers na nasa mga electric cooperatives na patuloy mag-e-enjoy ng kaunting refund sa kanilang mga electric cooperatives. Yun pong sa private utility natin, katulad ng Meralco, na kumpleto na po niya yung refund na inaasahan natin sa kanya. Patuloy din po yung ating fuel cost audit na tinatawag. Ito po yung pinapasa na pass-through charges ng mga generation companies na gumagamit ng panggatong katulad ng coal, diesel, and gas. Pag po ang distribution utility or electric cooperative, hindi po niya na-verify itong mga panggastos na ito, hindi po niya dapat pinapasa sa consumers. Meron na po tayong at least 2 electric cooperatives na nakita na hindi nagve-verify nung kanilang mga pinapasa sa consumers. Pinatawan na po natin yan ng penalty at naglabas po tayo ng warning na pag pinagpatuloy nila ang gawain ito, hindi na sila makakasingil ng pass-through charges at all sa kanilang mga consumers. So inaabangan po natin na sana ay pag-igting natin yung disiplina sa ating mga distribution utilities, pati na rin po sa lahat ng regulated entities natin.
Thank you, Chairperson Di Malanta. Now, the President also expressed, together with our private sector partners, we will efficiently harness the concept of common towers to provide connectivity to Filipinos who are at the far end of the last mile. Expect full government support to ensure the successful completion of this critical project, including policy reforms and streamlined processes. Now, what other initiatives can the government undertake to ensure that all areas would have internet connectivity? Secretary Uy.
Thank you, Daphne. Well, we do have very unique challenges with respect to connectivity, especially because we are an archipelagic country. So with more than 7,600 islands, we are deploying the correct technology with respect to areas where those technologies are actually appropriate. So fiber optic cables in most of the landlocked areas, where we are able to lay down those cables either through underground cables or terrestrial cables through these common tower that we are using. However, in the remote islands and in the mountainous regions where even the towers will not be feasible, we have to utilize other technologies. And the timing of the satellite, low Earth orbit satellites is actually that's very good, because it has now brought down the cost of internet connectivity using satellite connectivity. And so we've been deploying a large number of that all throughout the different islands without having to spend a huge amount laying down submarine cables to connect those islands. So in most cases, it's not economically feasible to lay down those cables because the communities are too small, or they do not have the ability to economically generate enough economic activity to pay for the cables. So we've deployed LEO satellites. The most famous, as you know, is the Starlink system. And so far, the Philippines is one of the fastest growing sites for that. In our recent meeting with them, they mentioned that they have at least already deployed 30,000 terminals in the country in less than 1 year. So it's one of the fastest growing satellite countries that are utilizing this kind of technology. So we are exploring more of these technology in order to quickly deploy connectivity in areas that are hard to reach, especially by traditional cable connections.
Thank you. Still on internet connectivity, another quote from the President's State of the Nation address. As part of our nationwide internet infrastructure development, Phase 1 of the national fiber backbone has been completed and operationalized. Phases 2 and 3 have already begun early this year and shall be completed by 2026. This fiber backbone will give us sufficient capacity in terms of bandwidth. Secretary Uy, what projects will the DICT implement to ensure internet connectivity in the areas that would not be reached by the national fiber backbone?
Well, the national fiber backbone is a 2 terabit capacity backbone that connects directly to the United States. So currently, because Phase 1 has been activated, we currently have opened up about 600 gigabits of bandwidth that's going to be used by the 17 provinces that are connected on the Phase 1. So with Phase 2 and Phase 3 coming up, we are already working on linking up with domestic submarine cable providers, as well as setting up middle mile and last mile connectivity in order to fully utilize the bandwidth that will be traveling through that backbone. In the meantime, in order to further speed up our deployment, the President recently has approved the loan from the World Bank of about $280 million loan in order to accelerate the remaining phases of the national backbone, especially in the Mindanao area. So with that loan, we will be able to accelerate now the deployment without having to wait for the annual General Appropriations Act, which will come out, year by year. Because if we wait for that, it will take a long time before we reach Mindanao. So we took out the loan now to finance Mindanao, and then everything will now meet in the middle. So while we are working from Luzon to Visayas down, the one from Mindanao will also be, through that finance loan, be connected, and it will work its way up. Then we will have a very redundant system, because now the fiber optic submarine cables that are connecting via Mindanao will now also be available to supply Mindanao, Visayas, and Luzon, rather than relying purely on the submarine cables that have been landing in Luzon in the past. So this will provide us with very good redundancy. So from 14 submarine cables, we will be increasing it to 16 submarine cables in a very short period of time. I mean, comparing it to, let's say, Vietnam, that only has 3 submarine cables. So that assures all our investors who want to locate in the Philippines that we have so much capacity and redundancy in terms of internet connection.
Thank you for that update. Wow. And we have another quote for DICT. Bigger and faster IT infrastructure requires stronger and more impervious cyber defense. Our recently launched National Cybersecurity Plan lays down the blueprint for us to safeguard our systems against cyber attacks. Secretary Uy, have we been able to crack down on these cyber criminals, and have there been any arrests or cases filed against them? What about those committed abroad? Are there going to be efforts to partner with other governments to run after these criminals?
Well, locally, we have been able to help our law enforcers in going after the local cyber criminals, cyber scammers, and hackers. I'm sure you've read in the newspapers and seen on TV, our law enforcement agencies parading some of these cyber criminals that have been hacking or scamming Filipinos for the past several years. So these are a joint effort between DICT and the law enforcement agencies in providing the technical intelligence so that our law enforcers will be able to obtain the appropriate warrants to raid the places, as well as to arrest the perpetrators. In many instances, a lot of these scamming syndicates are operating behind legitimate POGO operations. And so it's definitely a welcome announcement that when the President announced in his SONA of finally banning POGO, it will now make our lives easier, because we have been tracking a lot of these scammers who are operating behind these operators. And so by finally cutting, in short, their umbilical cord, there will be lesser opportunities for them to utilize those same bandwidth, those same technology in scamming and in defrauding our people. On top of that, I just came back from Washington, D.C. Last week for the first Philippine-U.S. Cyber Digital Dialogue. So this was an inaugural dialogue where we're working with the United States, cooperating with each other in order to build our cyber defenses, but at the same time, work on ways and means of tracking down international cyber criminal syndicates. We brought a large delegation with them, and we met with our counterparts there, including their law enforcement agencies, their national security agencies, in order to build up better capacity and better collaboration between the agencies concerned on cybersecurity, cyber defense, and law enforcement, so that we will be able to build better responses and prevent attacks that actually have been growing worldwide. This phenomena is not just in the Philippines. It's actually a growing phenomena worldwide because of it's a very lucrative trade. Cybercrime is very lucrative, and it's actually bigger now than the drug trade. So that actually is a huge incentive for cyber criminals to go into this kind of nefarious activity. And so it now requires a global response, and that's what we're doing. aside from the U.S.-Philippine cyber dialogue and cooperation, we're working with many other countries and international organizations, the Interpol, the cybersecurity agencies of all the different countries, who are all working together to go after many of these cyber criminal syndicates.
Yeah, wow, because of course cybersecurity doesn't scamming, it's also the security of our children, and sometimes human trafficking is also involved, but that's for a different sector. Let's go back to our energy and security issues. Let's open the floor now to some questions. We have some questions here from the media. Let me call on Luisa Erispe from PTV4.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Luisa Erispe from PTV4. This question po is for Secretary Lotilla. In the President's SONA, he mentioned that more energy projects and new investments are in the pipeline to cope with the country's growing energy demand at the height of the increased energy consumption during, or especially during the El Nino phenomenon. Conventional or traditional power plants such as coal and gas-fired plants proved to be more dependable. What is the status of power generation projects right now that the country is facing commitments to its carbon neutrality goals?
Well, thank you, Julia, for the question. The committed power plants that we have are on stream, and therefore, for Luzon, for example, we have still a capacity of I'm talking about the natural gas. The new LNG terminals can support up to 8,000 megawatts of power plants powered by natural gas. And in our case, of course, that is complemented as well by the natural gas coming from Malampaya, which is indigenous. But the other committed power plants also include coal-fired power plants. And we have for the next, for this year, for example, we have around 4,000 megawatts of capacity, new capacity that has been committed, and almost 2,000 of that is base load capacity, consisting of coal as well as some geothermal. Now, to the extent that a number of these coal-fired power plants have been delayed, one by the pandemic in the past, and some subsequent delays after that, we will still be seeing some of these coal-fired power plants being put up as late as 2028. So to that extent, it is going to affect our renewable energy targets. But it doesn't mean that we're going to give up on those targets. Instead, we view this as a non-linear growth for renewable energy. Right now, the renewable energy sources as a whole contribute up to 22% of the country's electricity. But of that of the total power, the one source from solar and wind constitute only around 3%. So we have a long way to go insofar as variable renewable energy is concerned, and therefore we will continue to push with that, including, of course, offshore wind energy. And here we are working together with everyone in order to achieve this. So, for instance, in the case of offshore wind, we're working with the Department of Transportation, because the Philippine Ports Authority would need to be able to come up with the support ports for that. And an important point that all of us here, for example, including DPWH, are concerned with is really connectivity. Secretary Uri has pointed out the submarine cables that are needed for information communication technology, the bridges and the roads that DPWH is building, the mass transport systems that are being built by the Department of Transport. So the President at the cabinet meetings has emphasized the need to come together and, for example, address issues like right-of-way as a common issue for all of these departments, because connectivity, whether it is virtual connectivity, it is electricity and so on, they all need to come together. In case of an emergency, we in the power sector are dependent on the communication sector in order to be able to find out where the damaged infrastructure are and to deploy additional assistance. Now, in their case, they cannot also operate without power. So there is so much that intersectoral cooperation that is needed. When we talk, for example, of agriculture, so now the National Irrigation Administration is promoting solar-powered irrigation sources. And we still have to use renewable energy even for our equipment, harvesting, post-harvest, and so on. So there's so much in the renewable energy space, not even directly for power uses, that we can still deploy. Thank you.
You have another question?
Yes po. Another question lang po for Secretary Latilla still. Sir, I know we're considering the renewable energy for an alternative source of electricity in the country. But since the President is very much concerned on the cost of electricity in the country, do you think the cost of electricity will be affected if ever unifying the grid between Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao? Will it lower the cost of electricity in the country?
I will defer to Chairman Di Malanta to expound on how it will help bring down the rates for power. But I would like to stress that, for instance, in off-grid areas, which are right now 100% dependent on diesel fuel, if we introduce renewable energy sources from solar and from wind, then we are going to really reduce their fuel costs. And that will have a direct impact on the cost of power. So, Chair Di Malanta has more to say about these things as they impact.
Para sa bayan. Ang susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan ng patnubay at gabay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.
Magandang araw Pilipinas, oras na para alamin ang sentro ng mga balita.
Dahil sa bagyong Karina at Habagat, malaking bahagi ng bansa nakararanas ng malalakas na pagulan at pagbaha. Marikina River, patuloy na tumataas ang level ng tubig sa harap ng walang tigil na pagulan. Ang update doon, alamin. Agarang tulong sa mga apektado ng kalamidad, ipinag-utos ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Bagyong Karina, patuloy na pinalalakas ang epekto ng habagat. Ang update sa naturang sama ng panahon, tutukan. Mga trabaho sa abroad, Binuksan ng DMW sa ikinasang job fair sa Tarlac ang mga oportunidad na pwedeng applyan ng ating mga kababayan, silipin. At Philippine National Police nagpaliwanag hinggil sa pagbabawas ng police security detail ni Vice President Sara Duterte.
Una sa ating mga balita, tiniyak ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. na tutok ang pamahalaan sa sitwasyon ng bansa sa harap pa rin ng nararanasang sa kanyang post sa X. Sinabi ng Pangulong Marcos Jr. na inatasan na niya ang lahat ng ahensya ng pamahalaan ng agarang magbigay ng tulong sa mga apektadong individual. Katunayan, nasa 2.88 bilyong pisong halaga ng tulong ang nakahanda na habang nasa halos 5,000 mga tauhan ang naka-standby para sa kanilang o kinakailangan search, rescue and retrieval operations. Personal din na inalam ng Pangulo ang sitwasyon sa ibang bahagi ng bansa at matiyak na mabilis na mayahatid ang tulong sa mga apektadong individual. Ipinunto pa ng Pangulo na nasa 43 milyong piso na ang naibigay na tulong sa 700,000 na individual na apektado naman ng southwest monsoon sa Visayas at Mindanao. Maya-maya ay ihahatid namin ang pangunguna ng Pangulo sa situational briefing. Diyan po yan sa NDR-RMC.
Patuloy pa rin ang pananalasa ng bagyong Karina na nagpapalakas pa sa epekto ng habagat. Halos buong bansa na ang apektado ng mga naturang sama ng panahon. At para mas maging handa, tayong lahat, alamin na natin ang update mula kay Pag-asa Weather Specialist Dan Villamil.
Kanina alas 6 ng umaga, huling namataan itong sentro ni Bagyong Karina sa layo 345 kilometers north-northeast ng Itbayat, Batanes. Isa pa rin itong typhoon na may taglay na lakas ng hangin na malapit sa gitna na umaabot sa 165 kilometers per hour at pagbukso na umaabot sa 205 kilometers per hour. Kasalukuyan itong gumagalaw pa ilagang kanluran sa bilis sa 15 kilometers per hour. Ngayong umaga, nakataas po rin itong tropical cyclone wind signal number 2 sa bahagi ng Batanes, samantalang signal number 1 naman sa Bubuyan Islands, northern portion ng Mainland Cagayan at sa northern portion ng Ilocos Norte. Kaya sa mga lugar na ito, maghanda pa rin tayo sa mga banta na malakas na hangin na dala ni Bagyong Karina. In addition sa mga areas na may nakataas na wind signal, dahil naman sa pag-ira ng southwest monsoon o hangin habagat, ay asahan rin natin yung mga pabukso-buksong hangin sa malaking bahagi pa ng Luzon at Visayas. Itong habagat ay magdudulot rin ng mga pagulan sa malaking bahagi ng ating bansa ngayong araw at pinakamaapektuhan dito ang kanlurang bahagi ng Luzon. Dito sa Metro Manila in particular and nearby provinces, maging handa pa rin po tayo lalo pa sa mga bansa na biglang pagbaha at pagbuhol ng lupa, lalong-lalo na kung tuloy ang pagulan na mararanasan. Sa kalagayan naman natin karagatan, may gale warning pa rin tayo nakataas sa mga dagat-baybay ng Batanes, Cagayan, Bubuyan Islands at Ilocos Norte. Kaya sa mga lugar na ito, sa nalalabing bahagi pa po ng ating bansa ay katamtaman ng sa malong karagatan na ating ilaasahan. At sa mga lugar na ito, especially sa mga areas na may gale warning, kung sa ating mga kababayang mahihisda at may mga maliliit sa kanilang pagdagat, kung maaari ay huwag po muna tayo pumalaot dahil makakaranas tayo ng paalon hanggang sa napangalong karagatan na dala ni Bagyong Karina. At yan lang ang litas mula dito sa Pag-asa o the Broadcasting Center ng Pilipinas.
Maraming salamat sa inyong oras, Pag-asa Weather Specialist Dan Villamil.
Samantala, personal na inalam ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ang sitwasyon at tulong sa mga lugar na sinalanta ng Bagyong Karina at habagat. Kaugnay niyan, nirekomenda ni DILG Secretary Benhur Abalos na isailalim na sa state of calamity ang Kalakang, Maynila dahil sa matinding pagbaha. Si Patrick De Jesus sa Sentro ng Balita. Patrick.
Yes, Aljo, ipinag-utos nga ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. sa mga kaukulang ahensya ng pamahalaan ang agarang aksyon dahil sa patuloy na mabigat na pag-uulan bunsod ng Bagyong Karina na nagpalakas sa hanging habagat. Ito ay nang pangunahan ng Pangulo ang situational briefing ngayong umaga dito sa NDRRMC sa Camp Aguinaldo. Dito nga ay binigyan ng update ang Pangulo patungkol sa sitwasyon sa Metro Manila at mga karatig na rehiyon na apektado ng pag-uulan. Sa pinakahuling ulat ng Office of Civil Defense, 8 na ang patay habang may isang nawawala. Umabot naman na sa 29 million pesos ang kabuuang halaga ng naipamahaging tulong sa mga apektado ng pagbaha. At mayroon pang 2.6 billion pesos na standby at stockpile funds ang DSWD. Isa sa direktiba ng Pangulo ay abisuhan ang mga residenteng maaaring maapektuhan kapag nagpakawala ng tubig ang mga dam. Pinatitiyak din niya na lahat dapat ay mabigyan ng karampatang tulong at dapat itong pagtulungan ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno kasama ang mga local government unit.
Maganda naman ang response natin. So far, sinabihan ko lang sila mag-focus lang ng mabuti doon sa mga areas na sa hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa natin may naipasok. So yun ang magiging next na priority na gagawin ng DSWD pati na siyempre Public Works because kung yung mga daan na landslide, kailangan magtulungan sila ng LGU.
Inirekomenda naman ni DILG Secretary Benhur Abalos na isailalim sa state of calamity ang buong Metro Manila. Pagpupulungan ito ngayong hapon sa MMDA Head Office sa Pasig City sa pangunguna nga yan ni Abalos. Aljo, dito sa NDRRMC, mapapansin nyo naman ay napakalakas pa rin nga ng pag-uulan at sa buong araw ay asahan itong tuloy-tuloy na pag-uulan at masamang panahon. Kaya patuloy na nakaalerto ang mga ahensya ng gobyerno. Kasunod na nga rin yan ng naging pagpupulong dito sa NDRRMC kanina ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Aljo.
Maraming salamat Patrick De Jesus. Samantala, mabilis naman na tumataas ang tubig ngayon dyan sa Marikina River. Agad nagsagawa ng paglilikas ang Marikina LGU sa mga residenteng apektado na ng pagbaha. Ang sitwasyon doon, alamin natin mula sa Sentro ng Balita ni Ryan Lasigas live. Ryan.
Aljo, alas 5 ng umaga nang dumating tayo dito sa Marikina City at simula kanina hanggang sa mga oras na ito ay walang patid ang buhos ng malakas na ulan kung kaya't mabilis din na tumataas yung level ng tubig sa Marikina River. Sa makikita mo dito sa aking likuran, almost 20 meters na yung level ng tubig. Pasado alas 10 kanina, Aljo, nang itaas sa ikatlong alarma ang Marikina River. At sa mga oras na ito, Aljo, ay tuloy-tuloy itong isinasagawang search and rescue operation ng Joint Task Force NCR sa ilang mga residente na natrap sa kanilang mga bahay dyan sa bahagi ng Barangay Malanday. Kanya-kanyang bitbit ng kanilang mga gamit ang mga residente ng Barangay Malanday dito sa Marikina City. Dahil kasi sa patuloy na buhos ng ulan, umapaw na ang creek sa tabi ng kanilang mga bahay. Si Fatima, hindi naalintana ang malakas na buhos ng ulan. Nataranta na daw kasi siya dahil hanggang bewag na ang tubig baha sa kanilang bahay. Dahilan para bumalikwas na sila patungo sa pinakamalapit na evacuation center. Dala niya ang kanyang 5 maliliit na anak, kasama na ang 6 na buwang sanggol.
Kasi baka makyat yung tubig kasi mababa lang kami.
Kasi ano na lang mga nabitbit mo ngayon?
Mga damit lang namin ng anak ko.
Paano yung ibang mga gamit na naiwan doon?
Andun, iniwan ko, bahala na ako. Kasi pumasok na sa amin yung tubig
Sa dami ng nagsilikas, agad napuno ang Bulela Covered Court na isa sa 50 evacuation center sa lungsod. Kinakailangan patuloy humanap ng iba pang evacuation center ni Loretta. Abot na daw hanggang tuhod ang baha sa kanilang bahay kung kaya't nag-alsabalutan na rin sila. Dahil sa takot, hindi naiwasan ni Loretta na mangilid ang kanyang luha. Naalala niya daw kasi ang oras na pilit din nilang isinalba ang kanilang mga sarili nung tumama ang bagyong Undoy.
Paabuti na po ng tubig.
Oo. Pag ganito po ba, anong ikinakatakot nyo na pag ganito masama yung panahon?
Siyempre po, yung pagbaha po, tapos yung mga batang maliliit.
Anong oras po kayo pinasok na ng tubig doon?
Hindi, ngayon pa lang po bali siya mapasok kasi po yung lugar namin naman po, medyo mataas dun sa ano. Pero sa sitaw kami, kaya lang medyo mataas yung lugar. Pero ngayon, ano na siya, mapasok na dahil mga napuno na lahat ng imbornal sa looban.
Pasado alas 6 kanina nang itaas sa ikalawang alarma ang Marikina River. Halos 1 oras lang ito. Matapos itaas sa first alarm ang Marikina River alas 5:30 kanina. Sabi ni Dave David, ang hepe ng MCDRRMO, ikinagulat din nila ang mabilis na pagtaas ng tubig sa ilog.
Mula kaninang alas 4, tuloy-tuloy yung malakas na buhos ng ulan. Sa upstream namin, ang record na nakukuha naming datos dun sa mga rainfall gauging station natin, halos 100 plus millimeters per hour ang volume ng tubig dun sa upstream. Kaya naman ang bilis din ng pagtaas ng water level dito sa Marikina. Tsaka yung malalakas na buhos dito talaga concentrated ngayon sa area ng Marikina at Rizal. Kaya naman yung mga ilang kalsada rin natin dito sa Marikina ay meron na rin tayong mga flooded streets.
Sa lakas ng ulan, maaari na daw maihalin tulad sa Bagyong Ondoy ang dami ng ulan na ibinubuhos simula kahapon.
Yung red rainfall warning nung Ulysses walang ganyan eh. Kung sa pagkakatanda ko, yung ganyang kalakas na red rainfall warning is far back Ondoy pa eh. In recent years, hindi ganyan yung volume. Sa tingin ko nga, yung nakalipas na 4 hours, mas malakas pa yung binababa ngayon na buhos ng ulan kahit kesa pa nung Ondoy.
Samantala, itinaas na rin sa third alarm ang San Mateo Batasan River. Umabot na kasi sa 20.85 meters ang taas sa tubig sa ilog. Dahil dito, inilikas na rin ang ilang residente na malapit sa ilog. Aljo, bagamat na paghandaan ng lokal na pamahalaan ng Marikina City itong pagbaha dito, ay hindi sila nagpapakakampante dahil inihalin tulad nga nila doon sa dami ng ulan na bumuhos nung tumama yung Bagyong Ondoy. Itong ulan na nararanasan dito ngayon. Sa ngayon, Aljo, unofficial tally ng mga residente na inilikas mula sa kanilang mga bahay ay halos nasa 15,000 residente na. At inaasahan yan na natataas pa hanggang mamaya dahil patuloy nga yung pagulan dito at patuloy din yung pagtaas ng tubig baha. Bukod doon sa 5 minomonitor na mga barangay na laging binabaha, sabi ng Marikina City DRRMO ay halos lahat ng barangay dito sa Marikina City ay tinututukan nila. Dumating na rin dito, Aljo, yung karagdagang tauhan mula sa Joint Task Force NCR at mula sa Philippine Coast Guard na tutulong sa kasakaling kailanganin ng mga residente dito sa Marikina City. Aljo.
Ryan, dumating na rin ba dyan yung karagdagang tulong, ayuda, relief goods mula sa national government, DSWD? Dahil kanina yata ay may panawagan si Mayor Marcelino Teodoro na for 2 days lang ang relief goods na pwede nilang ibigay sa mga evacuees dyan sa Marikina.
Yes, tama ka, Aljo. Hanggang sa mga oras na ito ay inantabayanan natin ngayong pagdating ng tulong mula sa national government dahil nga humihingi na ng saklolo itong lokal na pamahalaan ng Marikina City dahil sa dami nga ng mga residente na apektado nitong pagbaha ngayon dito sa Marikina City at inaasahan nga nila na madadagdagan pa ito hanggang sa mga susunod na araw, maaring kulangin daw yung tulong, partikular itong mga family food packs mula sa lokal na pamahalaan. Nasa 50 evacuation centers, Aljo, yung inihanda ng lokal na pamahalaan ng Marikina City at kanina as of 10 a.m. nasa 5 evacuation centers na mula sa iba't ibang paaralan, elementary school dito sa Marikina City ang nagagamit na. Kung mag-iikot ka, Aljo, dito sa may Marikina City, hindi lang yung mga dati nang binabaha ng mga area kasi yung mga major roads dito ay may mga gutter deep na rin yung tubig baha. So ganun kalakas yung ulan na nararanasan dito sa Marikina City. Aljo.
Maraming salamat, Ryan Lesiges.
Hindi rin nakatakas sa matinding pag-ulan, pagbaha at kahit pagguho ng lupa ang ilang lugar sa Northern Luzon. Tulad na lamang sa Cordillera Region na may mga kalsadang isinara dahil sa landslide habang meron ding pasyalan ang nalubog sa baha. Si Jordan Campana ng PTV Cordillera sa Sentro ng Balita.
Nakaranas ng pagbaha ang 7 barangay sa bayan ng Santa Ana, Cagayan dahil sa epekto ng Typhoon Karina. Halos 20 pamilya ang inilikas. Nagpaabot na ng tulong ang lokal na pamahalaan ng Santa Ana sa mga nasa evacuation center. Pinasok din ng tubig ang mga kabahayan sa 4 na barangay sa bayan ng Santa Teresita, Cagayan. Apektado dito ang 41 pamilya. Binaha din ang ilang bahay sa Barangay Ipil at Kabirawan sa Gonzaga, Cagayan. Binabantayan ngayon ang sitwasyon sa libol ng tubig sa mga ilog sa iba't ibang munisipalidad sa probinsya. Makikita sa larawan ang libol ng tubig sa bahagi ng Magapit Bridge sa bayan ng Lalo, maging ang Cagayan River na sakop ng barangay na Siping Gataran at Parid River sa bayan ng Alcala, Cagayan. Sa Cordillera naman, nananatiling nakasara sa mga motorista ang Cannon Road dahil sa pagguho ng lupa sa mill site Cam 6 Tuba Benguet kahapon. Nagsasagawa na ngayon ng clearing operation sa bahagi ng kalsada. Nagkaroon din ng landslide at soil erosion incidents sa iba't ibang lugar at kalsada sa Baguio City. Agad naman itong nirespondihan ng City Disaster Operations Team. Dahil sa malakas na pag-ulan, sinuspinde ni Mayor Benjamin Magalong ang pasok sa lahat ng antas ngayong araw. Muling binaha ang sikat na strawberry farm sa La Trinidad, Benguet. Binabantayan ng mga otoridad ang sitwasyon sa lugar. Nakahanda naman ang Department of Social Welfare and Development Office Cordillera sa pagbibigay ng ayuda sakaling may mga ilangan. Mahigit 24,000 na family food packs at 24,000 din na non-food items ang nakahanda sa rehiyon Cordillera.
Prior to this, we are 101% prepared. Ina-update natin ang entire region of our stockpile kung ano ba nakaredy yung ating mga preposition goods. Meron din tayong mga SWAT officers na nag-monitor ng weather condition.
Sa Ilocos Region naman, nakaalerto na rin ang iba't ibang Coast Guard substations at clearing outposts sa La Union para sa posibleng deployment. Pinaalalahanan ang mga mamamayan, lalo na ang mga mangingisda na huwag munang pumalaot dahil sa masamang lagay ng panahon. Ilang mga lugar naman sa Ilocos Norte ang binaha at isang bayan ang nagsagawa ng preventive evacuation dahil sa malakas at tuloy-tuloy na pag-ulan dulot ng bagyong Karina. 4 na pamilya sa barangay Katagtaguan sa bayan ng Ban na Ilocos Norte ang inilikas. Ang spillway naman sa barangay Estancia sa bayan ng Pidig, Ilocos Norte ay hindi na madaanan ng anumang sasakyan dahil sa umapaw ang ilog. Ilan ding lugar sa lungsod ng Lawag ang inabot ng tubig ang kanilang bahay matapos umapaw ang estero sa kanilang lugar. Jorton Campana para sa Pambansang TV sa Bagong Pilipinas.
Nagpakawala na rin ng tubig sa ilang mga dam. Kung ano-ano mga yan at posibleng maapektuhan. Alamin natin sa Sentro ng Balita ni Clazel Pardilla live. Clazel?
Yes, nagbabala ang Pag-asa sa heavy rainfall alert o patuloy na pag-iral ng malakas na ulan dito sa Metro Manila, partikular na nga dito sa Luzon. Taya na Pag-asa aabot sa 100 hanggang 200 millimeters ang ihahatid na ulan ng habagat at bagyong Karina sa ilang lugar sa Luzon. Narito ang pahayag ni Veronica Torres, ang weather specialist ng Pag-asa.
Pwede po yung mag-cause ng mga baha, lalo na po sa mga kung cemented yung lugar, hindi masyadong masisip ng lupa o kaya kahit sa, for example, soil. Pero kapag masyadong saturated, pwede rin mag-cause ng mga pagbaha, pwedeng magkaroon ng mga landslide.
Itinaas ang red rainfall warning sa Metro Manila, Rizal, Bataan at Pampanga pati na sa Zambales. Ang ibig sabihin ay inaasahan ang matinding pag-ulan at pagbaha sa mga flood-prone areas at hinihikayat ang paglikas sa mga lugar kung saan mayroon ng mataas na tubig. Orange rainfall warning naman o may banta ng pagbaha sa Tarlac. Habang naka-yellow warning naman sa Cavite, Batangas, Laguna, Nueva Ecija at ilang bahagi ng Quezon Province. At dahil maan sa patuloy na pag-ulan, nagsimula na ang pagpapakawala ng tubig mula sa Ipo Dam. 61 cubic meters per second ang inilalabas na tubig. Inaasahang maapektuhan ang mga lugar sa Norzagaray, Angat, Pael, Bustos, Baliwag, Pulilan, Plaridel at Hagonoy. Nagpakawala rin kaninang 11 a.m. doon sa Binga Dam na abot sa 27 CMS at posibleng maapektuhan yung mga barangay na malapit dito. Nasa warning level naman ang Lamesa Dam matapos maitala ang 79.41 meters na level. Posible pa itong tumaas at inaasahang aapaw sa oras na umabot sa 80.15 meters. Pinag-iingat ang mga residente sa may Tulyahan River, lalo na dyan sa may Quezon City sa Fairview, Forest Hill Subdivision, Quirino Highway, Santa Quiteria at San Bartolome. Sa Puldinang Valenzuela sa Barangay Ligon, North Expressway at La Huerta pati na sa Malabon. Mahigpit na binabantayan ang mga pangunahing ilog sa Metro Manila at pinaalerto yung mga nakatira na malapit dito, kabilang na dyan sa may Laguna de Bay, Marikina at Pasig River. Sabi ni Pag-asa Climatology and Agro-Meteorology Division OIC, Ana Solis, ang pag-iral ng mga bagyo at habagat sa ganitong panahon ay karaniwang nararamdaman ngayong rainy season. Pero posibleng senyalis rin ito ng La Nina, lalo't 70% ang tsansa ng pagpasok ng La Nina sa Agosto, Setyembre at Oktubre, pero sa ngayon ay nasa neutral condition pa ang lagay ng panahon. Sa ngayon ay hindi inaalis ang Pag-asa ang posibilidad na maging super typhoon ang bagyong Karina, pero inaasahan na lalabas na rin ito sa Philippine Area of Responsibility bukas. Yan muna ang latest mula rito sa Pag-asa. Balik sa iyo, Maan.
Clazel, matanong ko lang, sa pagpapakawala ng tubig, anong naging epekto nito? Kung may impormasyon na tayo, anong naging epekto nito sa mga maapektuhang lugar? Mayroon na ba?
Yes, Maan, ayon nga sa MWSS, kapag nagpapakawala ng tubig yung mga dam, bumabaha doon sa mga low-lying areas o yung mga communities na malapit doon sa mga dam. Kaya nga inaabisuhan sila na maging alerto at mag-ingat kapag nakikita na tumataas na yung level ng tubig o bumabaha na ay lumikas na agad. Maan?
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Clazel Pardilia.
Samantala, nagmistulang malaking parking lot ang ilang bahagi ng strand kung sana sa trabaho yun. Kahit pag-uwi ay pahirapan na din sa pagsakay. Ang update niya niyatin sa atin ni Mela Lesmoras live. Mela?
Joshua, patuloy ang monitoring ng MMDA sa iba't ibang panig ng Metro Manila, lalo na nga rito sa EDSA kung saan ang ilang bahagi ay talagang nakakaranas ng mabigat na daloy ng trapiko dahil sa pagbaha. Sa pag-ikot ng ating news team mula pa kaninang umaga, ay talaga namang tuloy-tuloy ang pagbuhos ng ulan, bagamat minsang humihina at minsang lumalakas ito. Dito nga sa may bahagi ng EDSA Muñoz northbound sa Quezon City, kanina pa walang galawan ang mga sasakyan. Mataas na kasi ang baha pabalintawa kaya't hindi na makausad pa ang mga motorista. Dito sa may overpass sa Muñoz, may ilan tayong nakausap na bagamat pauwi na sana dahil wala namang pasok sa trabaho at eskwela, hindi naman makaalis. Apekto buhay, biyahe. Patuloy naman ang mahigpit na monitoring ng MMDA sa sitwasyon. Paalala nila sa mga motorista, iba yung pag-iingat. Una nang nagsuspinde ng number coding scheme ngayong araw ang MMDA. Maaaring bisitahin ang social media pages ng MMDA para sa kanilang live updates sa iba't ibang kalsada sa Metro Manila. Joshua, sa mga puntong ito ay narito naman tayo sa malapit sa isang mall sa Quezon City. At buti nga ay pinayagan nila tayo dito nga sumilong dahil kanina nga talagang malakas yung buhos ng ulan. Ang magandang balita, Joshua, dito nga ay talagang medyo kumalma naman yung pag-ulan, pero umuulan pa rin. Ang mahirap nga, Joshua, kahit kumakalma ng konti yung pag-ulan, ay tuloy-tuloy yung pag-ulan, walang tigil yan. Lalakas, hihina, pero tuloy-tuloy yung pag-ulan. Dito nga, makikita nyo nga sa aking likod ay maganda naman yung lagay ng trapiko ngayon, pero doon nga, pagka umandar-andar ka pa ng konti sa EDSA northbound, ay talagang makikita na yung bumper to bumper ng mga sasakyan. Joshua?
Yes, Mela, nabanggit mo yung lagay ng trapiko, no? Lalo't ito nga nag-uulan, talagang isa yan sa mga pangunahing sanhi. Bakit nagta-traffic dyan sa EDSA? At kaugnay niya, may mga pwede bang daanan yung ating mga kababayan na alternative routes?
Joshua, sa ngayon kasi sa ating pag-ikot kanina lamang ay most of EDSA naman ay talagang humupa na yung mga baha kanina kasi kahit sa Quezon meron tayong nakikitang mga gutter deep na baha. Ang magandang balita ngayon ay humupa naman na, pero sa alternative routes, Joshua, ang sinasabi nga ng MMDA, manatiling nakatutok sa kanilang mga social media pages dahil blow by blow nag-update sila kung saan nga ba may bahang kalsada dahil Joshua, paiba-iba kasi yung panahon, no? Kanina, may mga parting baha, pero ngayon humupa na. At dahil tuloy-tuloy yung ulan, ay talagang patuloy rin yung monitoring natin kung may mga lugar pa o bahagi pa na babaha sa mga puntong ito. Joshua?
Alright, ingat kayo dyan. Maraming salamat, Mela Lesmoras.
Nakararanas naman ng mabigat na trapiko sa ilang lugar sa North Luzon Expressway dahil sa matinding pagbaha. Kaugnay niyan, makakapanayam natin ngayon ang Head ng Traffic Operation Department ng NLEX Corporation na si Mr. Robin Ignacio. Magandang hapon po, sir.
Good afternoon po, ma'am. Good afternoon po.
Sir, saan sa ang maapektadong lugar dito sa NLEX na ngayon nakararanas nga ng matinding trapiko?
Opo, meron po tayong flooded area po dito sa may Balintawak Cloverleaf, yung galing at papuntang Bonifacio. Hindi po ito nadadaanan ng lahat ng classes ng sasakyan. Pero yung ating northbound entry ramp, bagamat hindi pa po mataas masyado yung baha doon sa ramp na yon, sinarado na rin po natin kasi natatrap nga lang po dito sa loob yung traffic. So lahat po ng pa-entry ngayon sa NLEX mula Balintawak, Valenzuela, May Kawayan at Marilao ay pansamantalang sinara po muna. Dahil meron nga rin po tayong pagbaha dito sa may ilalim ng Paso de Blas dito sa Valenzuela. Magkabilang direction din po, malalim po yung baha po doon. At meron din pong pagbaha dito sa may Kawayan area. So hindi rin po nadadaanan ng both directions. And then yung northbound po ng Marilao area, hindi rin po nadadaanan. So yun pong northbound entries po natin mula ng Balintawak hanggang Marilao area ay pansamantalang sinara natin. Yung southbound naman po, as far as Santa Rita, wala na po tayong pinatutuloy papuntang southbound. Sarado rin po lahat yung ating entry sa southbound dahil dito sa pagbaha nito. At dito po sa area po ng Bukawi, mataas na rin po yung level ng Bukawi River Bridge na maaari din po itong mag-overflow. So hindi na po tayo nagpapapasok. So itong mga naka-trap ngayon dito sa loob ng expressway, bagamat nagawa na po kami ng mga U-turn na pwede nilang daanan para makabalik doon sa pwede pa nilang labasan. Pero marami pa rin pong hindi gumagalaw, nag-stay po dito sa loob. At yun nga po, pagka na-clear po ito ay masasabi po natin na pansamantalang wala munang papadaanin dito sa loob ng expressway mula po Balintawak hanggang Bukawi area. Bagamat dito po sa may galing Skyway, nakapag-coordinate na rin po kami na pababain na po yung mga sasakyan bago pa po bumalis ng sumapit or dumating ng Balintawak, ay meron pa po kami na monitor na bumababa galing Skyway. So hopefully mapababa na lang nila ang traffic nila bago dumating ang Balintawak.
Sir, panaka-naka ay humuhupa naman yung ulan po, no? Bumababa rin ba kapag ganito ang tubig sa mga binabahang lugar dyan o nananatili pa rin?
Yun pong bandang Balintawak, Valenzuela at saka May Kawayan ay wala po tayong namomonitor na pagbaba po ng tubig doon. Dahil na kahit po ganitong pansamantalang tumitigil yung pag-ulan, napag-alaman po namin na meron pong mga nire-release or nag-overflow na level ng mga dam. So yun ang nakaka-contribute po dito sa pagbaha dito sa Bulacan area. Kasi outside po ng expressway, mas malalim po yung mga napapag-alaman natin na pagbaha po sa mga ibang lugar.
Sir, bukod dyan, may na-monitor ba tayong aksidente sa daan?
So far sa ngayon po, yun nga, wala po tayong namomonitor na mga aksidente. At yun po, gusto ko na rin po idagdag din po na mula po Bukawi hanggang dulo po ng NLEX at yung kabuuan po ng SCTEX ay wala na po tayong namomonitor na pagbaha.
Okay. Mensahe na lang po natin sa publiko, lalo yung mga paalis pa lang sa mga oras na ito.
Opo. Sa ating mga motorista na kung hindi naman po talagang kinakailangan ay mainam na baka ipagpaliban na lang po yung pagbiyahe. Lalong-lalo na po kung dadaan po dito sa nabanggit ko pong area ng NLEX kung saan po ay hindi rin po sila padadaanin o papapasukin na muna.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Sir Robin Ignacio, Head ng Traffic Operation Department ng NLEX Corporation. Mag-ingat po kayo.
Samantala, hindi na rin nakaligtas sa matinding pagbaha ang ilang bahagi ng Bulacan. Hindi lamang mga bahay ang apektado dahil mapasimbahan man o paralan, pinasok na rin ng tubig. Si Vel Custodio sa Sentro ng Balita.
Pahirapan na naman para sa mga residente ang baha sa Barangay Santo Niño sa Pampari, Hagonoy, Bulacan.
Ay, mahirap. Katulad namin, lalong naghihirap. Malaki tubig. Yung bahay namin bumagsak, ibabad sa tubig. Wala kami mapuntahan nga halos ngayon, maghapon.
Sanayan na lang din po eh. Wala po magagawa, ganun po talaga.
Ilang araw na po kayong binabaha dito?
Isang linggo mahigit na rin po, ma'am. Nasasabayan po kasi ng high tide yung yung ulan.
Lugi rin daw ang kabuhayan ng ilang mga driver ng tricycle.
Talaga napakahirap sa aming mga driver ng tricycle na maghanap buhay pag ganyang malaki tubig tsaka umulan. Pagka kasi binyahin na yung mga tricycle na ganyang kaliliit din sa malaki tubig, ay napakarami na sisirang gamit sa mga tricycle. Malulugi po yung mga naghahanap buhay dito sa mga gastos ng tricycle.
Halos talaga hindi na kami makabiyahe. Yung pamilya namin, hindi nga namin alam kung paano namin mabubuhay pagka ganyang sitwasyon.
Malapit nang pumantay sa kalsada ang water level ng palaisdaan dahil sa walang tigil na pag-ulan. Pinasok na rin ang baha ang mga paaralan at lubog na rin sa baha ang sementeryo. Nasa mataas sa bahagi pa ako ng kalsada, pero kapag nagpatuloy pa ang paglalakad papunta sa bahaging yon, ay aabot na hanggang sa tuhod ang tubig baha. Kapag nagpatuloy pa ang malakas sa pag-ulan sa mga susunod na oras, ay inaasahang tataas pa ang level ng baha. Ang sasakyan namang ito, napaatras na dahil sa lalim ng baha. Ilang mga simbahan din sa Hagonoy ang pinasok ng baha. As of 3:38 kaninang umaga, kabilang na ang Bulacan sa nasa orange rainfall warning, kung saan pinag-iingat ang mga tao sa banta ng matinding pag-ulan, pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa.
Vel Custodio para sa Pambansang TV sa Bagong Pilipinas.
Samantala, puspusan din ang pagbibigay ng tulong ng Department of Social Welfare and Development o DSWD sa mga apektado ng matinding pag-ulan at pagbaha dulot ng bagyong Karina at Habagat. Batay sa tala ng DSWD, as of 6 a.m., umabot na sa higit 190,000 ang apektado ng masamang panahon sa National Capital Region, Regions 1, 2, 3, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol Region at Region 6 and 7. Umaabot naman sa higit 380,000 pesos ang naipalabas ng pondo para sa humanitarian assistance, habang may nakahandang higit 3 billion pesos na relief resources. Sa ngayon ay naka-red alert na ang DSWD Disaster Response Command Center para sa agarang pagbibigay tulong sa ating mga nasalantang kababayan.
Samantala, isang lugar sa may barangay Bagong Silangan sa Quezon City, lubog na sa baha. Si Noel Talakay sa Sentro ng Balita.
Ng PTV News Team. Kapansin-pansin ang isang lugar dito sa Bagong Silangan, Quezon City dahil nasa leeg hanggang lagpas tao ang tubig baha sa Jubilee, Tumana at Greenland ng nasabing barangay. Dahil dito nagsilikas na ang ilang mga residente. Yan, yung iba naman ay nakasuot na rin audio ng vest dahil alam nila na itong lugar na ito ay talaga namang binabaha. Nagsilikas na rin ang mga residente naman sa may Bona subdivision ng nasabing barangay din. Hanggang baywang rin ang taas ng tubig dito. Halos ganun din ang sitwasyon sa tulay na bakal sa may payatas ng nasabing lungsod. Kaya rin sinalba nila yung kanilang mga gamit. Nagmistulang dagat naman also itong bahagi ng Commonwealth Avenue dahil dito bumagal ang daloy ng mga sasakyan sa may North Avenue. As of 11 a.m., nasa mahigit 9,000 na mga individual ng residente ng lungsod ng Quezon ang nasa kanilang evacuation center. Aljo?
Noel Talakay.
Daan-daang pamilya din ang inilikas sa probinsya ng Cagayan dahil sa matinding pagbaha. Hindi lang mga bahay ang nasalanta, kundi maging ang mga sakahan. Si Vel Custodio sa Sentro ng Balita.
Halos 200 individual ang apektado ng baha sa Santa Teresita, Cagayan dahil sa bagyong Karina. Makikita sa mga larawan na pinasok na ng baha ang ilang mga bahay sa Barangay Caniogan, Barangay Sentro West, Barangay Simbaluca at Barangay Simpatuyo. Lubog na rin sa baha ang ilang mga sakahan. Patuloy na nakaantabay ang Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office sa Santa Teresita para matiyak ang seguridad ng mga residente. Binahari ng 7 barangay sa Santa Ana, Cagayan dahil sa ulang dala ng bagyong Karina. Halos 20 pamilya ang lumikas at 11 dito ang pansamantalang nanunuluyan sa evacuation center. Wala namang naitalang sugatan dahil sa bagyo. Sa ngayon, humina na ang ulan sa lugar pero patuloy pa rin ang pagbabantay ng MDRRMO ng Santa Ana. Dahil pa rin sa hugupit ng bagyong Karina, humambala sa kalsada ang gumuhong bahagi ng lupa ng Barangay Dodan, Peñablanca, Cagayan. Wala namang naitalang sugatan sa insidente. Nagsagawa na ng clearing operation ng MDRRMO sa lugar para matanggal ang mga gumuhong lupa sa kalsada. Vel Custodio para sa Pambansang TV sa Bagong Pilipinas.
Tiniyak ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ang patuloy na suporta sa mga imbensyong tatak Pinoy. Kasabay ito ng pagbibigay ng Presidential Award sa mga nagwagi sa National Invention Contest and Exhibits o NAIS. Si Kenneth Pasyente sa Sentro ng Balita.
Kinilala ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ang mga imbensyong tatak Pinoy. Iyan ay sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng Presidential Award sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon sa mga nagwagi sa taunang National Invention Contest and Exhibits o NICE sa pangunguna ng DOST. Dito pinuri ng punong ehekutibo ang mga gawang Pinoy na anyay malaki ang potensyal na makatulong sa pag-unlad ng bansa.
Hindi tayo sanay dahil hindi galing tayo sa Pilipinas na hindi naman kumpletong gamit natin, nakakapaghanap tayo ng remedyo. Ang Pinoy magaling makahanap ng remedyo. At kahit na limited lang ang resources natin, kahit na mahirap ang sitwasyon, walang masyadong kuryente, walang masyadong tubig, walang whatever it is, we find ways around that. And that's really the distinct for me. I always say that the success of Filipinos lies in their industry, their compassion, and resourcefulness.
Kabilang sa mga inobasyon ngayong taon ang salt harvesting equipment, plastic segmented fish cage at marami pang iba. Nakatanggap ang mga inventor ng mga ito na premyo na nagkakahalaga ng 100 hanggang 300,000 piso.
I want them to gain the benefit from their very good work. All of these inventions here are very fine ideas that you have put into reality. Hindi nyo lang inisip, renowing, pero ginawa talaga ninyo. Tinesting ninyo, gumawa kayong prototype. Yung nasira, inayos ninyo, dahan-dahan, hanggang na-perfect na ninyo. And that takes a great deal of persistence, determination, and a belief in the technology that you are developing.
Umaasa naman ng Pangulo na hindi lang matetenga ang mga ganitong uri ng imbensyon. Kasabay ang pagtitiyak na patuloy na susuportahan ng pamahalaan ang mga ganitong uri ng mga likha.
There is also a very strong motivation for the Philippine economy to have an environment that is conducive to startups. It's a difficult thing because startups generally have a failure rate it's rather high. It's the nature of startups. But one unicorn makes up for all of those others that did not make it. And that's what we have to do.
Ang taunang NICE ay sumusuporta sa Republic Act 7459 o ang Inventors and Invention Incentives Act of the Philippines. Layon nito na gawaran ng parangal ang mga inventor at hikayatin ng mga Pilipino na makabuo ng mga bagong produkto at proseso na pakikinabangan ng lipunan. Kenneth Pasyente para sa Pambansang TV sa Bagong Pilipinas.
Alamin naman natin ngayon ang update sa sitwasyon sa mga kalsada sa Metro Manila. Makapanayam natin si MMDA Flood Control Information Center Team Leader Bobot Balbaboco. Magandang hapon po, Sir Bobot.
Yes, Ma'am Maan, magandang hapon din po at saka sa ating mga taga-panood ng PTV4.
Sir Bobot, bigyan niyo naman kami na update sa mga kalsada natin ngayon. Ano yung mga hindi madaanan, may mga mataas ang baha?
Yes po, unahin po natin Ma'am Maan dito po sa may area, no? Kung saan po ang Espanya Antipolo po natin nananatili pa rin po ang tubig baha sa taas na 15 to 16 inches. So dito po sa may Espanya Antipolo, meron din po tayong 24 inches. Mali at passable na rin po to sa sa all types of vehicle, maliban lang po sa iba nating malalaking sasakyan na magdalakas loob na dumaan dito. So dito po sa sa Espanya P. Margal, 9 to 10 inches. Espanya M. de la Puente, 13 to 14 inches. Diretso naman po ng mga tubig dito sa Manila area, mabababa naman po at mga gutter deep, so passable naman po to. Dumako naman po tayo dito po sa may area naman ng Marikina. Bali, ang Marikina naman po, wala naman pong problema, no? Ang matataas pa po nating mga pagbahay dito po sa may Navotas area. Dito po sa may M. Nabal, meron po tayong 32 inches. At sa Governor Pascual, meron pong 20 inches sa all types of vehicle to. So, dito po sa may Pasay, ang mataas lang po dito ay yung airport road, domestic road, na kung saan po meron po pa rin po tayong 13 inches. And sa TAF, northbound and southbound, 19 inches at passable na po to sa light vehicle. Sa Quezon City naman po, meron po tayong E-Road, Araneta. Bali po nasa 45 inches po to, bali paakyat po to ng chest deep. Ito po yung binabantayan natin. Sa dahilan po na pong mga bandang alas 11, nag-high tide na po tayo sa taas na 1.42 meters. So, ang pinangangambahan po natin dito, yung pag-umulan at high tide po tayo, magsasalubong po lahat yung galing sa tubig dagat at saka yung ibabagsak ng tubig ulan. Kaya saan po natin na yung mga ni-report po natin medyo tataas pa po ito.
Sir, nagpakalat na ba tayo ng ating mga taga-flood control team? Kasi may mga nakita tayong nagbubukas ngayon ng mga drainage o yung mga imbornal para nga po bumaba yung mga baha.
Yes, ma'am. Bali po, kanina pa lang po, first morning, after the morning, nagkaroon na po kami ng mobilization po ng mga tao. Maging dito po sa mga tinatawag na stranded nating mga pasahero. Bali, ito po yung binabantayan po nila at pinupuntahan yung mga identified flood-prone areas po natin.
Sir, paalala na lang po sa ating mga motorista o yung mga aalis o lalabas pa ng kanilang mga bahay ngayong oras na to.
Po ng mga kababayan natin, sa mga kapatid nating mga nasa kanila pa mga tahanan, wag na po tayong mag-attempt na lumabas. Lalo na ngayon po yung ganitong kalagayan ng ating panahon. At mai-stranded lang po kayo dahil may mga portion po ng mga rito na talagang mahirapang makaraan ng mga sasakyan. So sa ngayon, po yung palabas po ng index dyan, may kataasan pa rin po ang tubig dyan. At nagkakaroon din po lahat ng uri ng mga sasakyan, no? At ngayon po, ito lang po munang maibabahagi nating report sa ating mga tagapakinig at taga-subaybay ng PTV4.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, MMDA Flood Control Information Center Team Leader Bobot Balbaboco. Mag-iingat po. Sa Quezon City naman, naging pahirapan ng rescue operations ng mga otoridad sa mga pamilyang na-stranded sa ilang barangay dahil sa pagbaha. Isang ginang napaanak pa nga habang ni-rescue. Ang update niyan sa Sentro ng Balita ni Benji Durango. Live, Benji.
Maan kaliwat ka ng baha ang inabot ng Quezon City ngayong araw dahil nga sa malalakas at tuloy-tuloy na pag-ulan na dala nitong bagyong si Karina. Dito nga sa barangay Santo Domingo, isang ginang ang nanganak sa kalagitnaan ng rescue operation. Isang ginang ang napaanak sa kalagitnaan ng baha sa barangay Santo Domingo, QC kaninang umaga. Makikita pa ang inunan ng sanggol. Nirespondihan na mag-ina ng QC DRRMO. Ligtas naman ang mag-ina pero kinakailangan silang dalhin sa ospital para maipasuri. Nasa third floor ang mag-ina kaya hirap ang mga rescuer na maibaba at maitiwid sa baha ang mag-ina. Pahirapan ang operasyon ng mga rescuer sa barangay Santo Domingo QC. Lampas tao na kasi ang baha. Ang mga residente gumamit na rin ng tali para maging gabay sa mga magsisilikas. Kanya-kanyang langoy naman ng mga residente. Bagamat napasok na ng rescuer ang loob ng barangay, kanya-kanyang likas pa rin ng mga residente. Ang mga nagsilikas naman sa kalsada na naghintay ng paghupa ng baha. Ang problema, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang bagsak ng pabugsong ulan. Ang entrada ng Skyway, naging swimming pool na. Nagkalat din ng debris na inadod ng baha. Wala ngayong sasakyan na nakakaraan sa Araneta Avenue patungong Caloocan. Kailangan ng langoy ng baha sa sitio San Isidro.
Malalim po.
Gano'ng malalim doon? Ha? Lampas sa'yo? Nilangoy mo?
So, paano, hindi ba kaya ng hindi ko kaya ng yung life vest? Kailangan po delikado pala. Opo, delikado.
Madaling araw pa lang, sinasabihan ng mga residente na lumikas pero di sila sumunod.
Tali daw, tali! Tali daw, tali!
Double time din ang mga rescuer sa barangay Bagong Pag-asa at Project 6.
Yung iba po kasi sir, hindi po nagpaparescue eh. Ayaw po nila kiyon ng mga bahay-bahay. Yung ganito kalalim, ayaw magparescue? Opo. Kaya po pinipili natin sila mag-port evacuation na po talaga ngayon. Hindi po nandun din sa pag-aggregation. Meron tayong 21 individuals. Madadagdagan pa malamang. Posible sir. Kasi ongoing pa po ang ating rescue operation.
Ang mga rumisponde, gumamit pa ng tali. Dito dadaan ang mga taong kailangan sagipin. Ang iba, lumangoy na lang gamit ang life vest at salbabida. Maya-maya pa, bumagsak na ang mas malakas na ulan. Lumakas ang agos ng tubig galing kalsada papasok ng sitio. Nahirapan ang mga rescuer, iniwan na nila ang mga tali para iligtas ang sarili. Umapaw na rin ang ilog na ito na tumatawid sa Quezon Avenue. Ang mga bahay, inabot na. Sa bubong na dumadaan ng mga residente, isang matandang babae ang nagdudumaling lumikas. Hindi pa kayo mag-evacuate? Lalabas na? Ay, maghahakot pa kayo ng gamit? Kasama ho kayo dyan. Mag-isa niyang inililigtas sa mga gamit. Samantala, nailabas na at nailikas na mag-ina na trap mula sa kanilang binahang bahay dito sa loob ng barangay Santo Domingo. Sakay sila ng rubber boat ng QC DRRMO. Nakabalot pa nga ng supot ang bagong panganak na sanggol habang ang ina naman ay binuhat ng mga rescuer. Dadalhin sila sa pinakamalapit na ospital. Samantala, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang pag-angat ng tubig baha dito sa Araneta Avenue. Kung makikita nyo sa aking likuran ay hindi pa rin humuhupa itong baha. At lalong hindi pa rin ito huhupa dahil tuloy-tuloy pa rin itong bagsak ng malakas na ulan dito sa Araneta Avenue.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Benji Durango.
At yan po ang sentro ng mga balita sa oras na ito. Hatid sa inyo ang mga konkretong impormasyon at serbisyo may aksyon. Ako po si Aljo Bendio para sa Bagong Pilipinas.
Hanggang bukas pong muli, ako si Joshua Garcia. Kasama nyo sa paghimay sa mga balitang tiyak na konektado ka.
Dahil sa Bagong Pilipinas, walang Pilipinong may iwan. Ako po si Maan Macapagal, hatid sa inyo ang balanseng balitaan at napapanahong talakayan. At ito ang Sentro Balita.
Mga minamahal kong kababayan, lagi po nating labanan ang mali at ang masama. Lagi po nating ipaglaban ang tama at ang mabuti. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipino. Mabuhay po kayo at mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Kumpletong-kumpleto ang bawat umaga sa siksik na saya, balitaktakan at impormasyon na handog namin sa sambayanan. Umaapaw na positive vibes at kaalaman sa Rise and Shine Pilipinas. Back-to-back na komentaryong matapang at nakapanig sa katotohanan sa Mike Abe Live. At punto asintado reload. At mahalagang paglilinaw sa mga usapang bayan kasama ang mga pinagkakatiwalaang mamamahayag at kinatawan ng pamahalaan sa bagong Pilipinas ngayon. Serbisyo, impormasyon, inspirasyon para sa bagong Pilipino. Kami ang inyong PTV, ang pambansang TV sa bagong Pilipinas.
Ang susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan ng patnubay at gabay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.
Huwag maniwala sa mga text messages, liham o tawag sa telepono na nagsasabing magbibigay sila ng tip kapalit ng pera o cellphone load. ISO certified ang PCSO lottery draw procedures kaya makatitiyak ang lahat na pantay-pantay ang inyong tsansang manalo.
afternoon, Lotto Philippines. Today is Wednesday, July 24, 2024. Since yesterday, we've had stormy weather, so please stay safe and dry, guys, and follow orders from your local government for your safety. Alright, sabayan natin ang buhos ng ulan. It's now time to give away thousands of cash prizes. And for sure, excited na kayong malaman ang mga winning combinations. So stick with us via the PTV network and official streaming channels. Alright, to start us off, let's meet our guests here in the studio. We have here our Lotto Draw panel of judges from the gaming public. Good afternoon and welcome po sa PCSO. Also here with us are the representatives of the PCSO and the Commission on Audit. Thank you po for joining us this afternoon. And of course, to assist us with our draws, we have our PCSO draw team member. Good afternoon, ma'am. For transparency purposes, we always conduct pre-draw procedures to ensure fair chances of winning among our Lotto players. Para sa mga naging highlights ng activity, let's watch this.
Sa isinagawang pre-draw procedures, nagkaroon ng machine inspection at machine testing para masigurong maayos ang mga machines during the live draws. Sa drawball case selection, pumili randomly ang chairperson ng isa sa 3 set ng bola para gamitin sa bawat game. Lahat ng bola ay tinimbang para masigurong halos pantay-pantay ang bigat ng bawat bola. Matapos masiguro na ito'y kumpleto, iniload ng draw team member ang draw balls na gagamitin sa live lotto draws.
Lotto Philippines, it's now time to play and win. Tara, let's play Lotto. Lotto players, eto na ang exciting prizes ng 2D Lotto. 4,000 pesos ang panalo if your two numbers match the winning combination in exact order. You may also try the Rambolito system play wherein you can take home 2,000 pesos. Good luck, 2D Lotto players! And here's our 2D Lotto winning combination. For the first number, we have 31. And the second number is 6. Recapping our 2D Lotto winning combination for the 2 p.m. draw, we have 31 and 6 in exact order. Coming up next, lucky 3 numbers from your favorite 3D Lotto game. For those who have just tuned in, we are now playing the 3D Lotto game. This time, 4,500 pesos ang panalo if the 3 numbers match the 3D Lotto winning combination in exact order. If you win via the Rambolito system play, you will take home 750 pesos or 1,500 pesos. 3D Lotto is every 2, 5, and 9 p.m. And here's the results of the 3D Lotto draw. The first number is 1. The second number is 4. And the third number is 2. Again, our 3D Lotto winning combination for the 2 p.m. draw is 1, 4, and 2 in exact order. Congratulations to all the winners! STL fans, kayo ang bida na sa next segment natin when we return.
Hi guys! Para sa mga bagong aspiring Lotto millionaires, ito ang video ng schedule ng Lotto.
Araw-araw, may tsansa kayong manalo dahil araw-araw ang swerteng hatid ng mga games ng PCSO.
From Monday to Sunday, 2D Lotto and 3D Lotto, 3 times a day na magpapapremyo. That's every 2 p.m., 5 p.m., and 9 p.m.
At tuwing alas 9 ng gabi, back-to-back ang mga pampagood vibes na dala ng mga favorite digit at jackpot-bearing games.
Every Mondays and Wednesdays, mega saya ang dala ng 2D Lotto, 3D Lotto, 4D Lotto, Mega Lotto 645, and the Grand Lotto 655.
Back-to-back-to-back naman ang multimilyong excitement every Tuesday, hatid ng 2D Lotto, 3D Lotto, 6D Lotto, Lotto 642, Super Lotto 649, at Ultra Lotto 658.
Super exciting din ang cash prizes na dala every Thursday ng 2D Lotto, 3D Lotto, 6D Lotto, Lotto 642, and Super Lotto 649.
Siguradong mag-e-enjoy kayo every Friday sa weekend treat ng 2D Lotto, 3D Lotto, 4D Lotto, Mega Lotto 645, and Ultra Lotto 658.
Talbog din ang Sabado night gimmick dahil big time ang panalong dala ng 2D Lotto, 3D Lotto, 6D Lotto, Lotto 642, and Grand Lotto 655.
At pagdating ng Sunday, game na game pa rin ang Lotto Barkada sa papremyong dala ng 2D Lotto, 3D Lotto, Super Lotto 649, at Ultra Lotto 658.
Huwag palampasin ang pagkakataong maging Lotto Milyonaryo.
Gina sa suking Lotto outlets and buy your tickets na.
At araw-araw, let's play Lotto!
Good afternoon, STL players. Here's the updated list of operations.
Please be informed that the PCSO has not authorized the operation of the following for the purpose of conducting lottery, sweepstakes, or any similar activities. Circulo mobile application, www.saturnstl.live, www.onlinestl.live. The PCSO is the sole government agency entrusted with the responsibility of managing and conducting lottery activities in the Philippines. We hereby notify the public to exercise caution and refrain from engaging with any unauthorized platforms claiming association with the PCSO.
In addition to the unauthorized platforms earlier, the 60win.world website is not connected nor an official website of the PCSO and its suppliers. No online format or application was created for selling tickets of the Scratch It and Go for Gold instant sweepstakes game. And for those who regularly check the lotto results online, the official results can only be found on the PCSO website and Facebook page, and on the PCSO Games online hub, Facebook page, and Instagram account. You may also call the PCSO directly to verify the results. No online format or application was created for the same purpose. And for our Health Talk, non-stop ang free medical and dental checkup dito sa PCSO. Open to serve you ang PCSO Clinic dito sa Mandaluyong City from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mondays to Sundays. Take note, first come, first serve policy dito. Reminder lang, please bring a photocopy of your valid ID. Para naman sa mga e-lotto players, we have some reminders for you. Narito po.
PCSO is gearing up to make our e-lotto services better. A more improved e-lotto solution is coming your way. As we transition to a new platform, narito mga paalala namin sa mga loyal e-lotto users. Starting July 13, hindi na po kayo makabibili ng lotto tickets through the e-lotto app. Pero tuloy-tuloy pa rin kayo makabibili ng inyong lotto tickets sa inyong suking lotto outlets. Para sa mga e-lotto players na may top-up at winnings sa e-lotto wallets, pinapayuhan po namin kayo na i-withdraw na ito on or before July 31, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. para ma-transfer na sa inyong GCash accounts. Sa mga e-lotto players naman na may advance draw tickets after July 12, 2024, huwag pong mag-alala dahil ang mga tickets na yan ay valid at kasali pa rin sa ating scheduled draws. Gayunman, pinapayuhan po namin kayo na i-screenshot ang lahat ng inyong advance draw e-lotto tickets on or before July 31, 2024.
It's recap time, starting off with our 2D Lotto winning numbers. We have 31 and 6 in exact order. Our 3D Lotto, we have 1, 4, and 2 in exact order. Congratulations, Lotto winners! Here is how you can claim your prizes.
Napakasaya ng manalo, napakadali pang mag-claim ng premyo sa mga lotto games ng PCSO. Kung isa ka sa pinalad na maging lotto winner, isulat lang ang inyong pangalan at pirmahan ang likod ng inyong winning ticket. Kung 20 pesos hanggang 10,000 pesos ang napanalunan, maaaring i-claim ang inyong premyo sa kahit saang authorized lotto outlets near you. And for winners of more than 10,000 pesos up to 300,000 pesos, you can claim your prizes at the nearest PCSO branch in your area and present 2 valid IDs. Kung ikaw naman ang super swerteng jackpot winner, dalhin lamang ang inyong winning ticket at 2 valid IDs sa PCSO main office, Shaw Boulevard, Mandaluyong City. Tandaan lamang may 1 taon kayo mula sa petsa ng inyong pagkapanalo para makapag-claim ng inyong premyo. To all the winners, congratulations po!
Sa pagtulong, ikaw ang gawa sa lahat sinusulong. PCSO, PCSO. Hindi umuurong
tickets mamayang 5 p.m. for the second batch of Digit Papremio courtesy of the 2D Lotto and 3D Lotto. And for our jackpot estimates, tonight's Mega Lotto 645 with an estimate of 12.5 million pesos. And for the Grand Lotto 655 at 119.5 million pesos. Ticket buy na rin for tomorrow Lotto 642, the 5.9 million pesos. And for the Super Lotto 649 with 15.8 million pesos. And that's all for the 2 p.m. draw. Para po sa PCSO, this is Sam Lowe. Sa PCSO, bawat taya may kawanggawa.
Mga issue, mga haka-haka, mga aksyon ng administrasyon. Samahan niyo po akong magbigay linaw tungkol sa mga usaping ito. Larry Gadon Live, dito lamang sa PTV.
Susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan ng patnubay at gabay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.
Pleasant greetings, y'all. Proud Filipina, Sharms Espina here. And the much-awaited face-off between the leading personas for the 2024 U.S. presidential elections is in the books. Friday's debate was the third time former President Donald Trump and sitting President Joe Biden laid out their claims and rebutted each other to make their cases to America on who should lead the most powerful nation in the planet beginning next year. And in this VOA offering, we look back on Biden's debut on the world stage with this address of the UN General Assembly in the fall of 2021.
In his first UN speech, President Biden reasserts America's place in the world.
I stand here today for the first time in 20 years with the United States not at war. We've turned the page.
Topping Biden's foreign policy priorities, climate, COVID, and China.
I know this. As we look ahead, we will lead. We will lead on all the greatest challenges of our time.
The global challenges facing the new U.S. president next on the Inside Story, Biden's UN debut. I'm Catherine Gibson, VOA's congressional correspondent. Shortly after his inauguration as the new U.S. president, Joe Biden told State Department workers that, quote, America is back. Diplomacy is back at the center of our foreign policy. This week, Biden outlined his foreign policy vision and priorities to an audience of fellow world leaders at the 76th UN General Assembly. Having ended America's longest war by pulling troops out of Afghanistan, Biden pressed an agenda that could be described as the 3 C's: climate, COVID, and China. Add a diplomatic spat between the U.S. and France, and Biden had plenty to deal with for his first UN speech. VOA's White House Bureau Chief Cassie Whitaker-Suara gets us started from New York.
In his first address to the United Nations General Assembly, U.S. President Joe Biden declared his administration ready to help the world tackle global challenges.
Ending this pandemic, addressing the climate crisis, managing the shifts in global power dynamics, shaping the rules of the world on vital issues like trade, cyber, and emerging technologies, and facing the threat of terrorism as it stands today.
Recognizing rising U.S. tensions with China and Russia, Biden said major powers must manage relationships and avoid conflict.
The United States is ready to work with any nation that steps up and pursues peaceful resolution to shared challenges, even if we have intense disagreements in other areas, because we'll all suffer the consequences of our failure.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also urged immediate action.
COVID and the climate crisis have exposed profound fragilities as societies and as a planet. Yet instead of humility in the face of these epic challenges, we see hubris. Instead of the path of solidarity, we are on a dead end to destruction.
Biden promised to boost funding up to $11.4 billion to help developing nations cope with the ravages of climate change and build greener economies. Some are skeptical of his commitment.
The U.S. also has a history of making fairly large pledges of support for international climate finance, but missing them when it comes to actually sending the money.
Still, Biden's speech is a departure from his predecessor's rejection of multilateralism and globalism. But he faces an uphill battle convincing allies that America is back and ready to lead.
The fiasco that took place in Afghanistan over the last few weeks of the withdrawal certainly caused a lot of alarm in many key capitals. And I think that President Biden needs to use global forums like the UNGA meetings to try to send a very important message to the world, including NATO partners and treaty allies in Asia, that despite what may have happened in Afghanistan, the U.S. remains committed to its allies and its partners.
Despite the chaotic withdrawal, Biden framed the U.S. exit from Afghanistan as an end to relentless war and the beginning of a new era of relentless diplomacy. But on the diplomatic front, Biden is already dealing with French anger over the recent U.S. and UK announcement to provide nuclear-powered submarines to Australia, which scuttled President Emmanuel Macron's conventional submarine deal. While trade relations need to be repaired, analysts say it's unlikely to have long-term impact.
The bigger issue with U.S. credibility is whether or not the United States can continue to signal that it's willing to kind of provide global public goods of security, of economic aid to its allies and partners, and when necessary, to work with the rest of the globe.
Patsy Widahuswara, VOA News.
Head of the United Nations welcomed world leaders back after a pandemic-induced virtual gathering in 2020. UN Chief Antonio Guterres starkly outlined the challenges the world is facing. He also specifically called on the United States and China to reduce tensions in their relationship. In his own words, the Secretary General urged both superpowers to tone down their increasingly heated rhetoric.
It will be impossible to address dramatic economic and development challenges while the world's two largest economies are at odds with each other. Yet I fear our world is creeping towards two different sets of economic, trade, financial and technological rules, two divergent approaches in the development of artificial intelligence, and ultimately the risk of two different military and geopolitical strategies. And this is a recipe for trouble. It would be far less predictable than the Cold War. To restore trust and inspire hope, we need cooperation, we need dialogue, we need understanding. We need to invest in prevention, peacekeeping and peace building. We need progress on nuclear disarmament and in our shared efforts to counter terrorism. We need actions anchored in respect for human rights, and we need a new comprehensive agenda for peace.
For many Afghan women, the recent takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban represents a return to a lifestyle of limited opportunities. Even with government officials announcing policies on women's education, many are skeptical. VOA's Arash Arabasadi reports on how some women are taking to the street, marching for their rights.
The Taliban said Sunday that women can continue their higher education in gender-segregated classrooms and so long as they wear a hijab.
The first solution is that there must be places where boys can be separated from girls. Or the second solution, there should be specified times for boys and specified times for girls. The third solution is there must be a partition in class.
Haqqani says the Taliban-dubbed Islamic Emirate will not oppose education that follows Islamic law. Advocates for women have voiced skepticism.
But every day we're receiving reports of rollbacks on women's rights. Women are prohibited from leaving the house without a mahram. In some provinces, they're stopped from going to work. Women protection centres that provide essential services for women who flee violence have been attacked.
Davidian added that safe houses are at full capacity. Last week in Afghanistan, women joined anti-Taliban protests in Kabul. The Interior Ministry of the Taliban government recently issued an order to end all protests in the country unless demonstrators first receive permission, including for slogans and banners. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
With the U.S. now out of Afghanistan, the international community is waiting to see which countries step in to provide support. Some experts say China and Pakistan are already laying the groundwork to offer short-term aid and long-term investment for the Taliban-acting government in Kabul. While Afghanistan's border with China is relatively short, how they and neighboring Pakistan act has major implications for the region and for U.S. security interests. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain explains.
Some Afghans are selling their prized possessions to finance their escape from Taliban rule or just to pay for food. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the country is facing a humanitarian crisis.
Humanitarian aid will not solve the problem if the economy of Afghanistan collapses. And we know that the risk is enormous and that there is a dramatic lack of cash.
The international community pledged more than $1.2 billion for humanitarian and development assistance for Afghanistan. The Taliban's acting foreign minister also called for access to the country's $10 billion in foreign assets, much of which has been frozen in the United States.
We believe that the USA is a big country. They need to have a big heart. Afghanistan is a poor country and must not be treated cruelly. We want positive and inclusive relations with the international community, and we ask them also to stop putting more pressure on the Afghan people.
The U.S. and other Western countries are calling on the Taliban to respect human rights, and in particular the rights of women and girls, before the assets are released. But China and Pakistan have sent food and health supplies to the Taliban acting government and held meetings with Taliban representatives. Experts say for Pakistan, the support for the Taliban is nothing new.
Pakistan certainly has had a relationship with the Taliban or individuals who constitute some of the Taliban leadership going back over 30 years.
The U.S. State Department is calling on Pakistan to hold the Taliban accountable, as Islamabad had pledged to do.
We are going to continue to look to Pakistan and to other countries in the region to make good on their public statements, on commitments they have made, to, in different ways, step up to support the people of Afghanistan.
Another analyst points out that for Pakistan, India is always a factor in the equation.
Pakistan is worried about India. India is its number one enemy. And so it definitely wants a government in Afghanistan that is friendly towards Pakistan and not towards India.
As for China, one expert says the important thing to keep an eye on is long-term investment in Afghanistan.
With With regards to China, it's the potential for investment over the long term following the template that it has used on its Belt and Road program. In Central Asia, this would typically begin with grants for large-scale road and infrastructure construction. Those have not been announced yet.
Another expert points out that investing in Afghanistan is a risky proposition.
China is being very careful about how it supports Afghanistan and essentially doesn't want to be sinking money into a black hole with no guarantees of either government survival or any guarantees of the jihadi groups that China is worried about that the Taliban supports.
Qatar is also providing tons of medical and food aid to Afghanistan and is working to get the Kabul airport back up and running. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
Long before China began using N95 masks and COVID-19 vaccines as part of its diplomatic efforts, it used pandas. The furry bears have been used by China to generate goodwill with other countries for more than 1,000 years. During the Tang Dynasty, Chinese Empress Wu Zetian presented Japan with 2 pandas. During the modern era, in 1941, just before the United States entered World War II, Beijing sent 2 cuddly black and whites to the Bronx Zoo as a thank you gift. The practice hit its stride during the Cold War. Mao Zedong sent pandas to China's communist allies, Russia and North Korea, in the 1950s. After U.S. President Richard Nixon's trip to China in 1972, Beijing gave the United States 2 giant pandas. Nixon said of the pandas' impending U.S. arrival, "It's going to be a hell of a story." He was right. More than 20,000 people visited the pandas the first day they were on display at the National Zoo in Washington in 1972, the first of 1.1 million visitors during the first year. The gift inspired British Prime Minister Edward Heath to ask China for pandas for the London Zoo during his 1974 visit to China. The panda adoration inspired the World Wildlife Fund to adopt the bear as its logo. In 1984, China changed its panda policy as environmental groups began to list the bears as an endangered species. Beijing switched to lending the bears instead of gifting them and made it clear that any cubs born overseas belonged to China. During the 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles, the United States paid $50,000 a month to borrow pandas. Now, zoos around the world typically pay up to $10 million for a 10-year loan period. The animals bring zoos millions in revenue each year. When new pandas arrived at the National Zoo in Washington in 2001, the zoo, which charges no entry fee, nearly doubled its merchandise and food sales. The animals are also an enormous expense, however. Apart from China's loan charge, pandas cost a zoo roughly $500,000 a year in care, National Geographic reports. That is more than 5 times the cost of the next most expensive animals, elephants. The costs add up because pandas eat special bamboo, live in custom-built enclosures, and often require in vitro fertilization treatments to produce panda cubs. Chinese officials have acknowledged that pandas' popularity has aided diplomatic efforts. The Chinese ambassador to the United States said in 2013, "There are actually 2 Chinese ambassadors in Washington, me and the panda cub at the National Zoo." An Oxford University study in 2013 found that China gave pandas either to Asian countries with which it had recently signed trade agreements, or to nations that had supplied it with natural resources and technologies. The study also found that China would recall its pandas to show disapproval. In 2010, 2 U.S.-born panda cubs that were due to return to China were put on a flight just days after U.S. President Barack Obama defied China's wishes by meeting the Dalai Lama. Recently, as tensions between the United States and China have been strained by a range of issues, China renewed the National Zoo's panda loan for 3 more years, but called for them to be returned in 2023. Pandas in the southern U.S. city of Memphis, Tennessee, have come under scrutiny after Chinese social media posts went viral, claiming that the animals looked unwell. Memphis zoo officials have denied the bears are sick and say they are checked by veterinary teams every day. Beijing controls all the world's pandas, which are native only to south-central China's mountain ranges. The bears also used to inhabit lowland areas, but their terrain has become more restricted because of farming and development. An estimated 1,800 pandas live in the wild in China, while 600 pandas live in zoos or breeding centers around the world. The animals are no longer endangered, but are listed as vulnerable.
One possible flashpoint in the U.S.-China relationship is Taiwan. The island is east of mainland China and governed independently since 1949. China views Taiwan as part of its territory, but the U.S. still sells military weapons to Taiwan, even though it no longer recognizes Taiwan diplomatically. And China is using the U.S. departure from Afghanistan to sow doubt in Taiwan about the strength of America's backing. VOA's Elizabeth Lee walks us through the situation.
With the rapid Taliban takeover of Afghanistan and the American troop withdrawal, China's government-backed Global Times newspaper is suggesting Taiwan could suffer the same fate as Afghanistan. A newspaper editorial described the U.S. as an unreliable partner. But the U.S. considers the Taiwan Strait to be key to the security and stability of the Indo-Pacific region.
We urge Beijing, as we have before, to cease its military, diplomatic, economic pressure against Taiwan, and instead to engage in meaningful dialogue.
On Twitter, Taiwan's Minister of Foreign Affairs Joseph Wu accused China of emulating the Taliban. He wrote, "We have the will and means to defend ourselves." Analysts say China's aim is to isolate Taiwan.
I think that article needs to be understood as for what it is, which is a piece of political warfare.
Without an American presence in Afghanistan, the U.S. may be able to focus more on Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific region, says political scientist Scott Harold.
The United States' explanation for why it was withdrawing from Afghanistan was so as to focus on countering China, Russia, and other malign great power actors, and not continuing to try to sustain a government that, unfortunately, we saw was not able to survive much beyond the period when the United States withdrew its very active support.
Analysts say the U.S. is not the only country that has an interest in security in the region. China's control of Taiwan would have serious implications for U.S. allies in the region, says analyst Michael Shoebridge.
Being in the possession of the Chinese would be a huge power projection platform for them, way beyond those tiny little bases they built in the South China Sea. And it would have a more profound power projection effect for them as a result. And it would cut right into the U.S. alliance relationships with Japan and Korea. So it's a fundamental security issue for the Indo-Pacific and for Australia as a result.
Taiwan is not only the key to the first island chain and the security of America's allies and partners in the Philippines, Japan, and South Korea, as well as Australia, but it's also the key to the global supply chain of semiconductors and other advanced technologies.
With news of how Beijing represses the country's Uyghur Muslim minority and continuing questions about COVID-19's origins, analysts say there is also more public support in the U.S. to defend Taiwan against China than to remain in Afghanistan.
The trends that we see in the populace as a whole are substantially greater in the elite and decision-making circles. I think China is more widely recognized as a threat there, and I think Taiwan's importance has only grown over the last 4 or 5 years from an already fairly strong base.
China considers Taiwan a renegade province and a domestic matter. Beijing, through the editorial, encourages Taiwan to seek peace with China politically. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Washington.
Word of a new trilateral defense pact by the U.S., Britain, and Australia has jeopardized ties with one of America's major European allies. France, caught off guard by news of the deal, recalled its ambassadors to the U.S. and Australia. The developments are also coming at a time when North and South Korea are ramping up missile testing in the Indo-Pacific region. VOA's Bill Gallo is monitoring the latest activity and what it means regionally and globally. He spoke to us earlier from Seoul.
So we hadn't seen any North Korean missile activity in about 6 months. Then we saw them launch a cruise missile, which could actually reach all of South Korea and most of Japan. That was last week. And then a couple days later, we saw them launch a ballistic missile. This missile was launched from a train, which is very interesting because North Korea seems to be trying to launch missiles from as many different types of basing platforms as it can. It's already working on launching them from submarines. It can do this from road mobile launchers and now trains. It's not, that dangerous in and of itself. It just forces the US, South Korea, and Japan to monitor all these different types of missile launchers. And that makes it a bit more difficult. This is definitely not just a North Korea thing. It's not just a North and South Korea thing. China is doing it. Taiwan is doing it. Japan is even thinking of doing it. We saw Australia in the news with these nuclear-powered submarines that they're getting with the help of the U.S. So it's true. I think North Korea will see this as, why should we be the only ones to stop testing our missiles if everyone else, including our main rival in South Korea, is getting all this really advanced weaponry? Coming into the start of the Biden administration, there was, I think, a widespread expectation in both North and South Korea that we would see a return to the Barack Obama era of strategic patience, which was sort of gradually ramp up pressure on North Korea in the hopes that this would return them to the negotiating table, but don't do anything really to rock the boat, whether that's through diplomacy, whether that's through big sanctions. And so basically that's somewhat the approach you've seen the Biden administration take. It repeatedly says, almost on a daily basis, that it's open to talks with North Korea. However, it's not really seeming to offer anything that North Korea wants in the form of relaxed sanctions or any kind of end of hostilities agreement for the Korean War that's been going on for 70 years, technically. And so I don't really know that even though you have these offers of talks from the Biden administration, that there really is going to be any progress on this. There is some frustration in South Korea because they really desperately want progress on denuclearization and on peace talks. But despite there being some sort of high-level diplomacy, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense of the U.S. have also visited the region since the Biden administration began. However, most of this was just repeating talking points. There may be something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, but it doesn't seem like it.
That's all for now. Stay with VOA News for the latest news from the United Nations General Assembly meetings. And stay connected at VOA News on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Catherine Gibson, reporting from Washington, D.C. See you next week for the Inside Story.
And that's a wrap for today. We hope you came out a tad more informed and updated. And we look forward to you joining us the next time for another VOA offering. Here's reminding you all to work hard and count those blessings while you catch the news right here. This has been Sharm Zespina for Stories from the Grid.
Sa kabila ng mga hamon ng ating kinakaharap, nasaksihan natin ang pinakamataas na ani ng palay sa bansa nitong nakalipas na taon. Pumalo ito sa lagpas 20 milyong tonelada, ang pinakamataas na ani mula noong 1987.
Ako si Seb Sarmenta, ako ay isang sports anchor na matagal nagtrabaho kasama ang PTV. Nung nag-start ako mag-connect sa PTV, kasi nasa vintage sports ako, talent ako doon, naging sportscaster ako doon. Kasi ang vintage, siya may hawak ng franchise ng PBA, ang broadcast rights. Doon nagkaroon ng partnership. Siyempre, nakakasalamuhan mo yung mga taga Channel 4, may mga project ng Channel 4, kinukuha ka, may partnership na na-establish. At mula noon, tuloy-tuloy na, marami na akong opportunities nagkaroon ng chance gumawa ng events. Nag-umpisa ako sa 1988 Seoul Olympics kasi ang PTV noon laging siya ang first choice at para kumover ng Olympics. At saka kasi maraming airtime ang PTV. Chamba talaga yun eh. Isang magaling na sportscaster si Joe Cantada was unavailable to go. So sabi, sige Seb Sarmenta, baka pwedeng may alam ka. So learning experience para sa akin. Whole new world ang binuksan ng PTV sa akin. Olympics, Asian Games, APEC. Hindi mapagkakaila at kahit sino tanungin mo sa sports industry ang contribution ng PTV sa sports sa Pilipinas. Isa ko pang natutunan mag-interview sa PTV kasi ganito style ng PTV. Sige Seb, tayo ka dyan. Sige. Bakit? May interviewing ka. Okay. Sino? Hindi pa namin alam. Meron kaming director noon, si Manay. Sabi niya, tumayo ka dyan. Sige, bahala na. Interviewin mo yan. Kausapin mo yan. Pahabain mo. Ang daming oras sa PTV. So, natutunan ko mag-stretch. Ang natutunan ko rin, siguro, is kailangan i-deliver ko yung needs ng production para maging gwapo kami o maganda kaming lahat. Kasi pag yung anchor mo, mahina yung dulo mo, lalaglag yung production. Isa sa pinakamahusay na broadcast schools ang PTV kasi kahit bago ka o luma ka, patuloy ang iyong learning process. At sana makabalik ako and other opportunities sa younger generation ng mga taga-PTV. Ako po si Seb Sarmenta at ito po ang aking kwentong PTV.
The Unity League Mobile Legends Bang Bang National Tournament is here, and we heard you. To accommodate more players, Unity League is now open to younger gamers. So if you are a Filipino citizen, age 15 years old and above, and have never joined in any professional league, assemble your team and join now. Registration is still open for the National Capital Region and Mindanao. The Unity League Mobile Legends Bang Bang National Tournament.
Mga minamahal kong kababayan, lagi po nating labanan ang mali at ang masama. Lagi po nating ipaglaban ang tama at ang mabuti. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Mabuhay po kayo at mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Sa mga studio set na ito, unang nabuo ang mga programang tumatak sa mga Pilipino at naging bahagi ng kwento ng PTV sa mahaba nitong kasaysayan sa telebisyon. Bilang pioneer sa industriya, binuo ng PTV ang kauna-unahang morning show sa Pinoy television noong 1978 at unang humubog sa mga murang isipan sa pamamagitan ng mga premyadong educational program. Nanguna rin ito sa paglikha ng mga skills development at livelihood training programs sa TV, public service programs na punong-puno ng puso at pagmamalasakit sa kapwa, mga bagong konsepto sa paghahatid ng balita, mga programang nagpapakita ng ating mayamang sining at kultura, at ang mga pinakasusubaybayang sports coverage at palaro sa bansa, gaya ng PBA at ng Summer Olympics. Magpahanggang ngayon, naging panatanan ng inyong pambansang TV ang maghandog ng mga dekalibreng programa para sa panibagong henerasyon ng mga manonood. Ito ang PTV, ang pambansang TV sa bagong Pilipinas. Health Watch, alertong pangkalusugan. Mga paalalang pangkalusugan laban sa leptospirosis. Ang leptospirosis ay sakit na dulot ng Leptospira bacteria mula sa ihi ng infected na mga hayop. Naipapasa ito sa pamamagitan ng pagtalsik ng kontaminadong tubig sa mata, ilong at bibig, sa kontaminadong pagkain at inumin, at paglusong sa maruming tubig habang may bukas na sugat. Kabilang sa sintomas ng leptospirosis ang lagnat, panginginig, pananakit ng katawan, sakit ng ulo, pamamantal, pamumula ng mata, paninilaw ng balat at diarrhea. Kung hindi maagapan, maaari itong makapinsala sa bato, utak at atay. Agad kumonsulta sa inyong doktor o sa malapit na health facility kung makaramdam ng sintomas. Para makaiwas sa leptospirosis, iwasang lumusong sa maduming tubig o baha. Gumamit ng bota at gloves kung kinakailangan. Maligo at magsabon agad kung nababad sa maduming tubig. Siguraduhing malinis ang inumin. Panatilihing malinis ang bahay at kapaligiran at ugaliin ang tamang pagtatapon ng basura. Tandaan, sa panahon ng sakit, dapat laging listo.
Proper diplomatic channels and mechanisms under the rules-based international order remain the only acceptable means of settling disputes. Peace and community building will always be our clarion call.
Limampung taon ng tapat na pagseserbisyo, kailanman, kahit saan, para sa bayan. Reaching the Filipino from every corner of the country via terrestrial TV. In Luzon, PTV 8 Cordillera, PTV 4 Manila, PTV 4 Palawan, and PTV 4 Naga. In the Visayas, PTV 11 Cebu, PTV 2 Guimaras, PTV 10 Dumaguete, PTV 12 Calbayog, and PTV 8 Tacloban. And in Mindanao, PTV 11 Pagadian, PTV 11 Sibugay, PTV 11 Davao, PTV 8 Agusan del Sur, PTV 8 Cotabato, PTV 7 Zamboanga, and PTV 48 Davao del Norte. And through the power of 6 digital transmitting stations, PTV 14 Manila, PTV 42 Cordillera, PTV 46 Naga, PTV 42 Cebu, PTV 23 Guimaras, and PTV 45 Davao. Connecting with the rest of the world in the era of digital technology. Through the power of television and our extensive online network, we continue crossing borders to serve the timeless news and information, bridging public service through innovative programs, fostering pride in the Filipino, and inspiring the people to be active partners in nation building. Noon hanggang ngayon, kasama mong naglilingkod. PTV, ang pambansang TV. Nakapagrehistro ka na ba sa darating na halalan? Sa Register Anywhere program ng COMELEC, mas madali na. Sa Register Anywhere, pwede ka na magrehistro sa pinakamalapit na website sa inyo. At hindi na kailangan magpunta pa sa lugar kung saan nakatira o boboto. Ang website registration ay bukas mula February 12 hanggang August 31, 2024 sa mga piling mall, university, government office, church organization, at private establishment sa buong bansa. Tatanggapin ang lahat ng klase ng aplikasyon mula bagong botante, transfer, reactivation, reinstatement, change of status, correction of entry, at overseas to local registration. Basta qualified magrehistro, welcome kayo dito! Huwag kalimutang magdala ng valid proof of identification. Bukas din ang mga lokal na tanggapan ng COMELEC para tumanggap ng mga magpaparehistro mula Lunes hanggang Sabado. Para sa karagdagang impormasyon at listahan ng mga Register Anywhere program site sa inyong lugar, bisitahin ang COMELEC website o social media pages nito. Isang mahalagang paalala mula sa inyong pambansang TV. Kasama mong naghahangad ng malinis at maayos na halalan sa isang bagong Pilipinas.
Naging part ako ng PTV, that was 2016, panahon ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Pinagkatiwalaan niya ako bilang isang board member. At 2 years ako naging general manager. Tapos ay napunta ulit ako sa pagiging director. So yun, naka 8 years ako. Doon sa aking administrasyon, sama-sama na nagtrabaho ng masaya, tahimik, at lalong itinaas ang antas ng PTV. So nung panahon ng pandemic, napakahirap yung ginawa namin. Kasi hindi natin alam kung paano papasok, paano kukuha ng balita ang ating mga reporters. So sinikap natin na mag-isip ng mga paraan kung paano tayo makakatulong sa ating mga kababayan sa paghahatid din ng mga tamang balita. Doon na halos tumutulog sa istasyon para lamang makapaglingkod sa ating mga kababayan. Sa panahon din namin, almost 13 years na hindi tumataas ang sweldo ng mga empleyado. Nagawa namin ng paraan na kahit paano maitaas ng konti yung sweldo ng mga empleyado na naaangkop sa mga legal na pamamaraan. Ako po si Julieta Jet Cloveria Laksa at ito ang aking kwentong PTV.
Disaster Watch. Alamin ang heavy rainfall warning system ng Pag-asa. Yellow rainfall warning. Pinapayuhan ng lahat na mag-monitor ng mga weather update sa inyong lugar. Maghanda sa posibleng pagbaha sa mga mabababang lugar at tabing baybayin. Orange rainfall warning. Mas malawak na pagbaha ang inaasahan at posibleng magka-landslide sa mga tabing bundok. Bumuo ng isang emergency kit at maghandang lumikas sa anumang sandali. Red rainfall warning. Inaasahan ang matinding buhos ng ulan sa loob ng 2 oras na magdudulot ng malawakang pagbaha at landslide. Para sa inyong kaligtasan, agad na lumikas papunta sa ligtas at mataas na lugar. Sa panahon ng kalamidad, dapat laging listo. Health Watch. Alertong pangkalusugan. Mga paalalang pangkalusugan laban sa leptospirosis. Ang leptospirosis ay sakit na dulot ng Leptospira bacteria mula sa ihi ng infected na mga hayop. Naipapasa ito sa pamamagitan ng pagtalsik ng kontaminadong tubig sa mata, ilong at bibig, sa kontaminadong pagkain at inumin, at paglusong sa maruming tubig habang may bukas na sugat. Kabilang sa sintomas ng leptospirosis ang lagnat, panginginig, pananakit ng katawan, sakit ng ulo, pamamantal, pamumula ng mata, paninilaw ng balat, at diarrhea. Kung hindi maagapan, maaari itong makapinsala sa bato, utak at atay. Agad kumonsulta sa inyong doktor o sa malapit na health facility kung makaramdam ng sintomas. Para makaiwas sa leptospirosis, iwasang lumusong sa maduming tubig o baha. Gumamit ng bota at gloves kung kinakailangan. Maligo at magsabon agad kung nababad sa maduming tubig. Siguraduhing malinis ang inumin. Panatilihing malinis ang bahay at kapaligiran at ugaliin ang tamang pagtatapon ng basura. Tandaan, sa panahon ng sakit, dapat laging listo. Disaster Watch. Alamin ang mga dapat ilagay sa go bag bilang paghahanda sa anumang sakuna. Maglagay ng tubig na maiinom at mga pagkaing hindi madaling masira. Maglaan ng espasyo para sa first aid kit at survival kit para sa mga hindi inaasahang pangyayari. Huwag kalimutan ang toiletries para mapanatili ang kalinisan sa katawan. Samahan din ang mga damit at beddings na magtatagal ng ilang araw. At para ligtas at may alam, magdala ng personal protective equipment at mga teknikal na gamit. Sa panahon ng kalamidad, dapat laging listo. Ang pinakabago at napapanahong balita sa bawat sulok ng Pilipinas.
Mabilis na nakalusot sa komite ng Kamara ang panukalang.
Apektado ng pagbaha at malalakas na pag-ulan ang ilang bahagi.
Mapapanood oras-oras mula sa Luzon,
Taytay ti pananagnakan ti may sa senior citizen.
Visayas,
Dulaan sa 700,000 ka mga plaka.
hanggang Mindanao.
Nagpasidian karon ang Food and Drug Administration kon FDA
Ang multilingual hourly news break ng bayan. Nakabantay at laging rumoronda sa PTV Balita ngayon. Dito lang sa inyong pambansang TV.
Hindi ka talaga mabubuhay kung hindi mo talaga gagalingan. Napaka-importante na dapat mabantayan natin yung operation ng negosyo natin.
Mga inspiring na kwentong buhay at negosyo kasama si Boss RDR, Raymond De Los Reyes.
Tiyaga, diskarte, saka disiplina sa sarili. Ang success is nandun after ng experience natin sa faith.
Ang nangungunang business podcast sa Pilipinas. Mapapanood na tuwing linggo, alas 5:15 ng hapon. RDR Talks, usapang kapupulutan ng mga ideyang kapaki-pakinabang. Dito lang sa inyong PTV. Mga balitang inaabangan, isyung pinag-uusapan, at ang pinakamaiinit na headline sa loob at sa labas ng bansa. Hatid na inyong mapagkakatiwalaang primetime news program sa bansa. Kasama sila Aljo Bendijo,
sa loob ng isang mall sa Tagum City.
Dayan Kirer,
Ng isang organisasyon ng pagbabasa ng libro.
Maan Makapagal,
13 ng Setyembre.
Ulat Bayan, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi. Dito lang sa PTV.
The biggest names in news wires, all under your People's Television, every hour, every week. To give what's breaking in the headlines and show thought-provoking documentaries. Only here at the People's Television.
Mga balitang inaabangan, isyung pinag-uusapan, at ang pinakamaiinit na headline sa loob at sa labas ng bansa. Hatid na inyong mapagkakatiwalaang primetime news program sa bansa. Kasama sina Audrey Coriseta,
Tuloy-tuloy na buhos ng ulan.
Dayan Kirer,
Ng isang organisasyon ng pagbabasa ng libro.
Maan Makapagal,
13 ng Setyembre.
Ulat Bayan, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi. Dito lang sa PTV. Health Watch, alertong pangkalusugan. Mag-ingat sa dengue. Ang dengue ay isang viral infection na nagmumula sa kagat ng lamok na Aedes na sanhi din ng iba pang sakit gaya ng Zika virus at chikungunya. Ito ay nagdudulot ng mataas na lagnat, pamamantal, pananakit ng kasukasuan at kalamnan, panghihina, pagdurugo ng ilong, pagsusuka at pagdurumi na may kasamang dugo. Ang mga sintomas ay karaniwang nagtatagal mula 2 hanggang 7 araw. Sa unang senyales ng dengue, kumonsulta agad sa doktor. Uminom ng maraming tubig, inumin ng mga gamot na nireseta, at magpahinga. Iwasan din ang pag-inom ng aspirin at ibuprofen. At ikonsulta muna sa inyong doktor kung iinom ng herbal o alternative medicine. Tandaan, ang kalinisan ang pinakamabisa nating panlaban sa dengue. Health Watch, alertong pangkalusugan. Road Watch, iwas disgrasya tips sa kalsada. Eyes on the road, kaibigan. Ayon sa Republic Act 10913 o Anti-Distracted Driving Act, mahigpit na ipinagbabawal ang paggamit ng cellphone o anumang gadget habang nagmamaneho. Ibig sabihin nito, bawal tumanggap ng tawag, mag-text, maglaro, mag-compute, magbasa, at mag-internet kapag hawak ang manibela. Siguruhin ang cellphone ay nakalagay sa safe zone ng sasakyan at hindi nakasasagabal sa line of sight mo habang nagmamaneho. Gumamit ng hands-free function. At kung gagamit ng Google Maps o Waze, iset muna ang destinasyon bago magbiyahe. Pwede lamang gumamit ng cellphone kung may emergency sa daan at kailangan tumawag sa kinauukulan. Hindi biro ang parusa sa mga lalabag sa batas, kaya sumunod sa lahat ng oras. Kapag buhay ang nakataya, dapat listo sa kalsada. Roadwatch, hatid ng inyong PTV.
Mga minamahal kong kababayan, lagi po nating labanan ang mali at ang masama. Lagi po nating ipaglaban ang tama at ang mabuti. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Lagi po nating mahalin ang Pilipinas. Mabuhay po kayo at mabuhay ang bagong Pilipinas.
Department of Foreign Affairs Undersecretary Charles Jose. Department of Interior and Local Government Undersecretary Lord Villanueva. Department of National Defense Undersecretary Angelito De Leon. Department of Justice Undersecretary Raul Vasquez. Philippine Coast Guard Commandant, Coast Guard Admiral Ronnie Hill Gavan. Philippine National Police, Chief Police Lieutenant General John Michael Dubria. And Acting Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Lieutenant General Charlton Sean Gerlan. As conveyed from the third State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., pag-usapan natin ang isa sa kanyang mga tinalakay. One of these is flashed on our screen. In the face of our challenges to our territorial sovereignty, we will assert our rights and interests in the same fair and pacific way that we have always done. Proper diplomatic channels and mechanisms under the rules-based international order remain the only acceptable means of settling disputes. Peace and community building will always be our clarion call, especially when the country serves as chair and the host of the ASEAN Summit in 2026. This is for the DFA. Can you please share with us the results of the Trilateral Summit Leaders Summit held in the U.S. in April of this year? What projects or initiatives are we expecting as a result of this summit?
Well, at this time, I would like to speak about the West Philippine Sea issue in general terms muna, before I go into details. The West Philippine Sea is a key issue with domestic and foreign policy dimensions. And this is where the close coordination of the member agencies of the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea and the National Maritime Council is most clearly demonstrated. As a maritime and archipelagic nation connected by the waters, reliance on the oceans as an avenue for connectivity, a source for livelihood and economic well-being, this means that challenges in the West Philippine Sea and in all our waters are core issues that direct to the hearts and minds of all Filipinos. The President said in his SONA that we will assert our rights and interests in the same fair and pacific way that we have always done. This policy has rung true since the President took up the mantle of the presidency in 2022. The Philippines has continued to demonstrate its commitment to peace. However, you may recall that the President also said in one occasion that our calm and peaceful disposition should not be mistaken as acquiescence. This is why we remain steadfast in upholding our sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea and in all our waters, without compromising our positions and our principles. The President said in his SONA that proper diplomatic channels and mechanisms under the rules-based international order remain the only acceptable means of settling disputes, and we have employed exactly that. We continue to build strong relations in and around the region to support our principled position. Bilaterally with China, we just concluded the 9th Philippines-China bilateral consultation mechanism on the South China Sea in Manila on July 2, 2024. Subsequently, the understanding of principles and approaches that will be observed by both sides during the conduct of the Philippines' lawful and routine rotation and resupply missions to the VRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal was agreed. We are hopeful that this can be a positive contribution to de-escalate tensions and settle disputes in the West Philippine Sea. So that in short is what the work the DFA is doing in order to ease the tensions in the West Philippine Sea by means of diplomatic approaches.
Thank you, Undersecretary Jose. Moving forward to the next quote, our bloodless war on dangerous drugs adheres and will continue to adhere to the established 8 E's of an effective anti-illegal drug strategy. Extermination was never one of them. This is for the DILG. To cut down the demand for illegal drugs, you have pursued the BIDA program. Could you please tell us more about the BIDA program and its achievements so far?
Well, thank you for the question, Daphne. The BIDA stands for Buhay Ingatan, Drogay Ayawan. And the first 2 words of that motto, Buhay Ingatan, are no accident. They emphasize this administration's value, the value that it places on the dignity of life and on human rights. And as testament to the effectivity of this program, I'd like to note that this administration has, within just its first 2 years, seized a total of 44 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs. And based on statistics, this is the highest amount, highest value of illegal drugs that has ever been seized in the first 2 years of any administration in history. So that's a tremendous achievement, considering that this was done without any bloodshed or any great bloodshed. And the BIDA program, of course, includes a component of rehabilitation, of bringing drug surrenderies and bringing them into recovery and returning them back to the community. And almost 500,000 have been part of this program and have been successfully integrated into the community. So that's the BIDA program in a nutshell. It is a life-centered effort towards achieving strides against drugs within the bounds of our oath as public officers, and it also focuses on rehabilitation and treatment and in promoting health and wellness also among the youth. Secretary Ben-Hur has, by way of modeling a healthy lifestyle, on a practically monthly and weekly basis, been traveling all around the country, engaging in fun runs, engaging in dialogues with government officials in order to promote health and wellness among the youth, on the idea that merely catching drug pushers and drug suppliers is not enough. We must also reduce the demand for drugs. It has to be a two-pronged effort, by reducing supply and reducing demand for drugs by promoting youth and wellness. That is the holistic approach of the BIDA campaign. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you, Undersecretary Villanueva. Similarly important, the discussions about the operations of POGO is now rampant. As such, President Marcos reiterated that disguising as legitimate entities, their operations have ventured into illicit areas farthest from gaming, such as financial scamming, money laundering, human trafficking, prostitution, kidnapping, torture, and even murder. The grave abuse and disrespect to our system of laws must stop. Kailangan nang itigil ang panggugulo nito sa ating lipunan at paglalapastangan sa ating bansa. Still for the DILG, are there policy reforms or laws that need to be amended to ensure that syndicates that run scamming, human trafficking, and online crimes would not be able to operate in the country again? DILG?
Yes. I think what we in the DLG are focusing now is improving interfacing between law enforcement and local governments so that there can be greater cooperation with respect to rooting out this menace. One thing we would like to emphasize is although we've come to know this new kind of organized crime as POGOs or online gaming operations, another term for them is scam farms. It goes so much more than just simple scams or online gaming. In effect, this new kind of organized crime, these hubs of multiple buildings, they function as BPOs of global crime. It's not just scamming, it's just not just online gaming, it's every form of cybercrime under the sun, including money laundering, data harvesting, you've got disinformation, you also got investment scams, even identity theft, all kinds of fraud. So they do this directly or they do this in service of underworld bosses abroad. And most insidiously, these kinds of operations are run by slave labor, where the people participating in them are made to work under inhuman conditions and tortured. And their operations appear to be like normal BPOs since they sit in front of computer screens. It's not obvious, which is why the close cooperation between the community, between the local governments and law enforcement needs to be strengthened. So what the DILG has been doing is been going around. We've had 2 conferences so far with the help of PAGCOR. We've engaged PAGCOR to help us also present to the public the signs, the factors by which these kinds of syndicates can be identified.
Thank you for your insights. Now let's dive into the next excerpt. The Philippines cannot yield, the Philippines cannot waver. We are now more conscious as a people and strategic in heightening our aerial and maritime domain awareness. We are continuing to strengthen our defense posture both through developing self-reliance and through partnerships with like-minded states. This is for the DND. Could you please share with us the status of our efforts to strengthen international defense partnerships? Please expound on this.
Thank you, exactly, for the question. The department is currently pursuing the Comprehensive Archipelagic Defense Concept, or CADC, which aims to broaden the strategic depth of the armed force of the Philippines. Simply put, from an inwardly defensive depth concept, we are venturing forth to a defense concept that would ensure that our interest in the exclusive economic zone and the extended continental shelf shall be well protected, to include the protection of our citizens abroad. In the pursuit of the Comprehensive Archipelagic Doctrine, or CADC, there are certain capabilities that the armed forces would need. And in the pursuit of these capabilities, we are venturing forth into the Horizon 3 of the AFP modernization program. This intends to develop our armed forces into an expert and a force that can be multi-domain and could address the evolving security landscape presently besetting us. We are also venturing forth in the development of our cyber defense capabilities, as it is a new domain of warfare. We are developing not only capabilities, but the organizational progress of our cyber group, the AFP Cyber Group, into a AFP Cyber Command. And while we establish an effective maritime domain presence, not only in the West Philippine Sea, but in the entire archipelago, we also engage international defense and security partners abroad. To date, we have 33 formalized engagements. Sweden, which is the newest country that we have engaged in, and we are venturing forth into exercises with these countries. The reciprocal access agreement recently signed with Japan is a testament to this engagement. And finally, not only the developing capabilities of our armed forces, we are on track to a defense transformation program that would like to transform the Department of National Defense into a future-ready department that will be able to adequately service our stakeholders, including our 5 bureaus, which are the Government Arsenal, the National Defense College of the Philippines, the Office of Civil Defense, the Philippine Veterans Affairs Office, and finally, the Armed Forces of the Philippines. These are the thrusts that we are venturing forth in our international engagement in the pursuit of defending our territory. Thank you.
Thank you, Undersecretary De Leon. The President also mentioned that bolstering our Cybercrime Prevention Act, the recently passed Anti-Financial Account Scamming Act, will further protect the public by heightening the responsibility and security systems of banks and financial institutions and imposing high criminal liabilities on social engineering schemes and money mules. This is for the DOJ. The DOJ has an Office for Cybercrime. Could you please tell us more about your agency's efforts to fight cybercrime and how the AFASA can help in this fight?
Good afternoon, Daphne, and good afternoon to our fellow Filipino people. The Department of Justice is very much focused on heightening its capacity in terms of the cyber prevention, cybercrime prevention. And in fact, the recent approval and signing into law of the cybercrime law, and that this capacitates more the law enforcement as well as the prosecutors in the fight against cybercrime. We are also trying to ensure that the National Justice Information System, or the NGIS, which is under the helm and leadership of the Department of Justice, would soon enable all partner agencies in that interagency group to talk, quote unquote, with each other in order that they could do information sharing, that all data could be uploaded and could be made available to everyone in the fight against criminality. And we have also to mention that there is an effort to really secure latest technology in order to enable the prosecutors and law enforcement in this fight against cybercrime. We have to emphasize, Daphne, that the law is a bit static and a bit behind in terms of the technology, and cybercrime, as we know it, is an ever-evolving area where there is a lot of prospects for criminalities within the domestic sphere as well as the international sphere. There is transnational crimes that are committed, and there is a serious effort, an all-government approach that is being undertaken by all the security agencies of our government, the armed forces, the law enforcement, in order that we would be able to combat this rising nefarious activity.
Okay, thank
so
you.
That's with respect with the cybercrime matter, Daphne.
Thank you, Undersecretary Vasquez. We'll get back to you a little while. Oh, but we still have you in the next one. Let's talk about this quote from the third SONA. The strong pillars of our criminal justice system, especially in light of the revised rules on preliminary investigation and inquest proceedings, and our independent judiciary functions in unison so that our laws are enforced and that justice is served. Undersecretary, what are the next steps to successfully implement these new rules on preliminary investigation?
The newly signed DOJ NPS National Prosecution Service rules on preliminary investigation and inquest proceedings virtually changed the landscape in criminal investigation and prosecution by ensuring that there be a higher degree of proof. There's a higher quantum of proof or evidence needed for the filing of cases. This is to ensure that only quality cases are filed, one that is supported by evidence, real, testimonial, and other corroborative witness, in order that the wrongdoers or the criminals would really be brought to bear before the bar of justice. But at the same time, and more importantly, it is also to assure that the innocents need not needlessly be charged in court or need not needlessly be incarcerated. So, as former